deɛ ɛho hia me paa na deɛ ɛtɔ so mmienu 024 53 47696 numbers no deɛ ɛho hia paa na ɔbɛbɛbisa sɛ namba bɛn na paritani abere a ɔbɔ ɛde ama.
My brothers and sisters, the problems we face are real, but so are the solutions. We can rebuild our economy, we can create jobs, we can restore faith in governance, but we must commit to the hard work of change. You were not appointed to occupy space, you were appointed to solve problems. Let me remind you of the social contract we have entered into. The Ghanaian people expect us to deliver, and we must not with excuses, but with results. I've said before and I repeat now, this is the legacy term of my presidency. I intend to make it count. I intend for it to matter. And I expect that every member of this administration will do the same. We must work with a sense of urgency, and President Jonathan spoke about the 4-year term. Our young people are tired of waiting interminably. Our farmers, our workers, our entrepreneurs, especially our women and youth, want to see policies that work for them. They want fairness, they want opportunity, they want to live in dignity and prosperity. Indeed, they are not asking for handouts. They're asking to be given a fair shot. And let's give them just that. The task before us requires leadership that is empathetic, that is disciplined and accountable, leadership that is not defined by titles, but by service, that is not defined by slogans, but by substance. And so I issue this challenge to each of you to lead your sectors with vision and integrity, to champion innovation, make decisions based on facts and data, and not on guesswork. Spend public funds wisely and judiciously. Reject opulence. And never forget, your first duty is to the people of Ghana and not to your own political survival, not to the applause you will get, and not to your personal gain. I want each of you to leave this retreat with a clarity of purpose and with the humility to keep learning. This job is not about knowing it all. It is about listening. Example, I'll stay true to the values. And please remember, when any of us fall short, I will not hesitate to act. I didn't think that was what you would clap for. Let us leave here with renewed determination. Let us work not for applause, but for results. Let us lead with honor, and let us remember always that the true measure of our success will be the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. And finally, let me remind us all that the destiny of our party and our future success depends on the legacy that this current administration will establish. And so we must give it our all. We must work together to make our party's future successful. I therefore have the privilege and honor to declare this executive leadership program duly open. My brothers and sisters, the problems we face are real, but so are the solutions. We can rebuild our economy, we can create jobs, we can restore faith in governance, but we must commit to the hard work of change. You were not appointed to occupy space. You were appointed to solve problems. Let me remind you of the social contract we have entered into. The Ghanaian people expect us to deliver, and we must not with excuses, but with results. I've said before and I repeat now, this is the legacy term of my presidency. I intend to make it count. I intend for it to matter. And I expect that every member of this administration will do the same. We must work with a sense of urgency, and President Jonathan spoke about the 4-year term. Our young people are tired of waiting interminably. Our farmers, our workers, our entrepreneurs, especially our women and youth, want to see policies that work for them. They want fairness, they want opportunity, they want to live in dignity and prosperity. Indeed, they are not asking for handouts. They're asking to be given a fair shot. And let's give them just that. The task before us requires leadership that is empathetic, that is disciplined and accountable, leadership that is not defined by titles, but by service, that is not defined by slogans, but by substance. And so I issue this challenge to each of you to lead your sectors with vision and integrity, to champion innovation, make decisions based on facts and data and not on guesswork. Spend public funds wisely and judiciously. Reject opulence. And never forget, your first duty is to the people of Ghana and not to your own political survival, not to the applause you will get, and not to your personal gain. I want each of you to leave this retreat with a clarity of purpose and with the humility to keep learning. This job is not about knowing it all. It is about listening. Example, I'll stay true to the values. And please remember, when any of us fall short, I will not hesitate to act. I didn't think that was what you would clap for. Let us leave here with renewed determination. Let us work not for applause, but for results. Let us lead with honor, and let us remember always that the true measure of our success will be the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. And finally, let me remind us all that the destiny of our party and our future success depends on the legacy that this current administration will establish. And so we must give it our all. We must work together to make our party's future successful. I therefore have the privilege and honor to declare this executive leadership program duly open. My brothers and sisters, the problems we face are real, but so are the solutions. We can rebuild our economy, we can create jobs, we can restore faith in governance, but we must commit to the hard work of change. You were not appointed to occupy space. You were appointed to solve problems. Let me remind you of the social contract we have entered into. The Ghanaian people expect us to deliver, and we must not with excuses, but with results. I've said before and I repeat now, this is the legacy term of my presidency. I intend to make it count. I intend for it to matter. And I expect that every member of this administration will do the same. We must work with a sense of urgency, and President Jonathan spoke about the 4-year term. Our young people are tired of waiting interminably. Our farmers, our workers, our entrepreneurs, especially our women and youth, want to see policies that work for them. They want fairness, they want opportunity, they want to live in dignity and prosperity. Indeed, they are not asking for handouts. They're asking to be given a fair shot, and let's give them just that. The task before us requires leadership that is empathetic, that is disciplined and accountable, leadership that is not defined by titles, but by service, that is not defined by slogans, but by substance. And so I issue this challenge to each of you to lead your sectors with vision and integrity, to champion innovation, make decisions based on facts and data and not on guesswork, spend public funds wisely and judiciously, reject opulence, and never forget your first duty is to the people of Ghana and not to your own political survival, not to the applause you will get, and not to your personal gain. I want each of you to leave this retreat with a clarity of purpose and with the humility to keep learning. This job is not about knowing it all. It is about listening. For example, I'll stay true to the values. And please remember, when any of us fall short, I will not hesitate to act. I didn't think that was what you would clap for. Let us leave here with renewed determination. Let us work not for applause, but for results. Let us lead with honor, and let us remember always that the true measure of our success will be the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. And finally, let me remind us all that the destiny of our party and our future success depends on the legacy that this current administration will establish. And so we must give it our all. We must work together to make our party's future successful. I therefore have the privilege and honor to declare this executive leadership program duly open. My brothers and sisters, the problems we face are real, but so are the solutions. We can rebuild our economy, we can create jobs, we can restore faith in governance, but we must commit to the hard work of change. You were not appointed to occupy space. You were appointed to solve problems. Let me remind you of the social contract we have entered into. The Ghanaian people expect us to deliver, and we must not with excuses, but with results. I've said before and I repeat now, this is the legacy term of my presidency. I intend to make it count. I intend for it to matter. And I expect that every member of this administration will do the same. We must work with a sense of urgency, and President Jonathan spoke about the 4-year term. Our young people are tired of waiting interminably. Our farmers, our workers, our entrepreneurs, especially our women and youth, want to see policies that work for them. They want fairness, they want opportunity, they want to live in dignity and prosperity. Indeed, they are not asking for handouts. They're asking to be given a fair shot. And let's give them just that. The task before us requires leadership that is empathetic, that is disciplined and accountable, leadership that is not defined by titles, but by service, that is not defined by slogans, but by substance. And so I issue this challenge to each of you to lead your sectors with vision and integrity, to champion innovation, make decisions based on facts and data and not on guesswork, spend public funds wisely and judiciously, reject opulence, and never forget your first duty is to the people of Ghana and not to your own political survival, not to the applause you will get, and not to your personal gain. I want each of you to leave this retreat with a clarity of purpose and with the humility to keep learning. This job is not about knowing it all. It is about listening. For example, I'll stay true to the values. And please remember, when any of us fall short, I will not hesitate to act. I didn't think that was what you would clap for. Let us leave here with renewed determination. Let us work not for applause, but for results. Let us lead with honor, and let us remember always that the true measure of our success will be the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind.
So we are crossing over.
Finally, let me remind us all.
After which citizen show better say near you game. We didn't do to that stay on.
Price verification. These services, partially delivered, require comprehensive review to assess their ongoing relevance, especially viewed in light of the implementation of the transaction audits and external price verification. These services, partially delivered, require comprehensive review to assess their ongoing relevance, especially viewed in light of the implementation of the integrated customs management system, outcomes, external price databases, and research services provided by SML. Capabilities for externals. Based on the reckoning that SML had gained 4 years experience and had become more proficient, the contract price should be renegotiated, including consideration of shifting from a variable to a fixed fee structure. Finally, in respect of this matter, KPMG said consideration should be given to incorporating periodic monitoring and evaluation at least every 2 years to formally assess the performance of the components of the contract. In respect of this matter, KPMG said consideration should be given to incorporating periodic monitoring and evaluation at least every 2 years to formally assess the performance of the components of the contract and the OSP investigation. Upon the conclusion of the investigation, investigation on 3 main grounds. First, KPMG reports second, KPMG report looks like a preliminary investigation, turned up more critical questions than answers, which require further investigation. Third, the KPMG audit work and outcome differ significantly from the OSB investigation carried out. Factors of cost value analysis and the performance of the contracts. The OSV's work in this case is a criminal corruption and corruption-related investigation of not just assessing the propriety and appropriateness of acts and activities in the context of the SML contracts, but also examining the criminal culpability or otherwise of implicated persons, which is wider in scope and outlook than the audit work of KPMG. Then again, while the OSP's preliminary findings accorded with the major actual findings in the KPMG report, the OSP found itself unable to agree with some major conclusions drawn by KPMG, especially in respect of accountability and value for money. The OSP investigation was concluded on 3 October 2025 after extensive surveillance, comprehensive review, and analysis of hundreds of relevant and related documents at MOF, GRA, and PPA. Digital and electronic review and analysis of thousands of relevant related documents and computer servers and hard drive components retrieved from 2 premises of SML at Osu in Accra.
Office of the Special Prosecutor, Isia Jaben especially. Are you trying to have some connected back? And I am feeding him. You live on Accra 100.5 FM. Jumedi in the Citizen Show. Midin Nana Utu Darko Yemfa Asada PCM Commander Boham Kwabena Bubian San Baby will be a Yinka Iura Crusade. Near Miss Asen Pum to say, Yatra Konya Bunus ya Crado, yes, right, Yabasum Ghana, we are here to serve, and this country only we shall serve. And same baby Hodamwa, ye be ye free poso, ye beka wasem. But Yanka so say, yes, streaming live on Facebook, wobetimi ajoin feed no na wakyerem baby abutu ATM ye na menso maka mensamo a metimi aka akyerɛ true reading the text that you give me. But and Ministry of Health and some woman buy for lightweight and common hono ye be the home common na ya hwɛ krono a certain regime Utim said this was organized crime. Kronia, yen shada nwene ho tenase na yembu o man faso, you know, they set out to plunder our country. You better sense no like we in common na ye di bi e wo fia no, but all the same ye din common na ye pushi attorney general na ye pushi any of those offices including but not limited to NIB, you know, the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, Economic and Organized Crime Office. Yoko say enye press conference here. Let's push that agenda. Those who are candidates for jail must be behind bars. Anyhow, it's not enough to be doing press conferencing here and there. Yes, fantastic. We appreciate, but the crack is saying. The crack is saying we are almost a year into government. The crack is saying. The crack is saying maybe. I think we haven't challenged. Try not fix it, mine. Let's pick it again here. So we're trying to get a proper.
The incorporation of SMEL by Mr. Duse, and the application for sole sourcing of SMEL by seemed unrelated at first glance. However, a closer look at subsequent events from June 2017 to 14 February 2024, when Mr. Oforiatta's tenure ended, show a tightly knit and non-coincidental association of the prior identified events as the precursors of a masterful and mischievously crafted scheme designed by Mr. Oforiatta immediately upon assumption of office and throughout his tenure as the chief promoter, patron and sponsor of the company, and the previously unseen power that unlawfully force-fed the company into the revenue assurance drive of GRA through a series of reckless decision-making and management and flagrant violation of statute through the use of public office for profit, contrary to section 179C of the Criminal Offences Act 1960 at 29, and by directly and indirectly influencing the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage in the award of procurement contracts to the company, contrary to section 92(2)(b of the Public Procurement Act 2003 at 663, with the pliant and avaricious and questioning compliance of two successive GRA 20 Commissioner Generals, who he kept at a slavish subservience, leading to colossal financial loss to the Republic. By December 2024, SML had been paid a total amount of 1,436,249,828 cedis, 53 pesos. The OSP investigation also showed that the company was incorporated for the sole purpose of employing it as a vehicle to ride on official patronage and sponsorship erected on false and contrived acclaim and attributes for the award of public procurement contracts in the revenue assurance setup. The SMEL period. First application by GRA to PPA. By a letter dated 16 June 2017, Mr. Inti, then as Acting Commissioner General of GRA, requested PPA for approval to engage SMEL through single source procurement under section 40A and B of the Public Procurement Act for enhanced classification, valuation and risk management in the context of the payment of duties and levies on imported goods. The request stated that there were incidents of same goods given different classification and duties, which were giving rise to challenges and undue delays at the ports of clearance, and that SMEL would address these challenges faced by GRA to allow for full, smoother, and better services in the customs processes and procedures. The request touted SMEL as having particular interest in providing effective and measurable solutions for the enhancement of government revenue, and that SMEL also enjoyed financial and technological backing from its investors, one of which was Cotecna SA, described as a multinational company well versed in the business of inspection, testing, certification, and the provision of tailor-made information technology solutions. The request further stated that though Cotecna SA had given SMEL the right, that includes its proprietary systems for classification and valuation known as ValueQuest and Executive Reporting System ERS, and that these solutions would ensure full integration with the systems in the customs chain at the time to further enhance the purpose of the exchange of information between the systems. The request was both irregular and perplexing. It was simply unfathomable that a company which commenced business on 14 February 2017 would have attained the experience and track record that was advertised in the request by Mr. Nti, dated 16 June 2017, for the nature of the proposed assignment. SMEL did not possess the experience and know-how to engage in revenue assurance services on behalf of the Republic. That much was clear. And this obvious incredulity, which must have been prevailing on the mind of Mr. Nti, triggered an internal conflict in his own request, as Mr. Nti then promptly referred to the financial and technological backing of the supposed investors of SMEL. And from then on, the 16 June 2017 letter no longer sounded as a request to sole source SMEL, but a pseudo request to sole source Cotecna SA, a supposed investor of SMEL. The copious reference by Mr. Nti to Cotecna SA and its notable technological acclaim was merely a ruse to divert attention from the glaring incapacity of SMEL in an attempt to directly influence the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage for SMEL, notwithstanding its lack of experience and technological capability. Indeed, GRA failed to submit any evidence of a partnership or investment agreement between SMEL and Cotecna SA. The request merely attached the profiles of the two entities and a letter of intent from Cotecna SA. Further, nothing in Section 40 of the Public Procurement Act, which governs single source procurement, operated in favor of the attempt to sole source SMEL to engage in revenue assurance on behalf of the Republic. Therefore, it came as no surprise that by a letter dated 4 July 2017, PPA communicated its disapproval of the 16 June 2017 request by GRA. PPA was emphatic that SML had no proven experience in the business it sought to undertake. Further, PPA stated that the letter of intent by Cotecna SA did not establish any legally binding relationship between SMEL and Cotecna for the provision of the service, and that the company seeking to be considered for a contract must demonstrate an appreciable capacity and strength of its own, and possibly subcontract a portion to a qualified subcontractor or agent, which was absent in the case. Second application by GRA to PPA. Then followed a second and stranger and more perplexing request by Mr. Nti, still as Acting Commissioner General of GR, to PPA by a letter dated 1 August 2017, by which GRA applied for approval to sole source SMEL, and this time with Ghana Link. Cotecna was still in the picture somewhere. The request recited that SMEL had acquired a software for the classification, valuation, and risk management, that is CVRM platform, from Cotecna SA, and that SMEL had agreed to enter into a partnership with Ghana Link, a renowned local inspection and verification service provider, to provide the necessary support services for the implementation of the platform for GRA. A request further stated that in the partnership agreement, SMEL will provide a CVRM platform, while Ghana Link will provide external verification services using an appropriate platform, and that Ghana Link would also provide monitoring and supervision of customs valuation to ensure that the appropriate values were applied. The tone and tenor of the content of his own application should have portended pause and reflection,
on the part of Mr. Nti. In effect, he was stating that SMEL did not possess the requisite experience and track record, and no appreciable capacity and strength of its own. Yet, he was actively urging SMEL on PPA for approval merely 6 weeks after the PPA disapproval on the same ground. This was not reasonable persistence. It was a deliberate attempt to manipulate the procurement process, introduce a redundant private actor, and distort the facts and create a backdoor entry for SMEL into Ghana's revenue assurance architecture. This time, PPA did not even bother to respond, as the circumstances surrounding SMEL's lack of capacity and track record had not changed from the time of the rejection of the first application. Even more troubling was the fact that these CVRMs were being carried out by customs officers through the National Single Window Platform. Mr. Nti did not relent. He repeated a second application to PPA. Seeing that PPA had not responded to the second GRA application 6 weeks after the request was transmitted, and the powerful behind-the-curtain chief promoter, patron, and sponsor of SMEL, Mr. Furiata, was insistent on pushing the company into revenue assurance space through Mr. Nti. Mr. Nti repeated the second application by GRA to PPA for the sole sourcing of SMEL and Ghana Link by a letter dated 14 September 2017, which was almost word for word with the 1 August 2017 request. PPA certainly had had enough by this time, and it responded by a letter dated 29 September 2017 and rejected the second repeated GRA request. PPA forcefully stated that SMEL has still not shown any proven capacity in terms of experience and provision of similar assignments intended to be undertaken under the proposed joint venture agreement with Ghana Link. PPA also noted that the relationship between SMEL and Ghana Link did not provide the needed joint capacity to undertake the assignment, since SMEL would not be responsible for the bulk of the assignment by GRA's requirements. PPA signed off by stating that the reapplication by GRA did not address SMEL's lack of capacity in respect of the assignment. PPA did right in our estimation on all accounts on this matter up to this point. And with this, SMEL, now SML. Following these setbacks, a simple but clever second plan was implemented to ensure that the company will certainly be awarded public procurement contracts for revenue assurance, come what may. On 22 November 2017, Strategic Mobilization Enhancement Limited, SMEL, changed its name to Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, SML. Only the name changed. Everything else remained the same, including personnel and lack of expertise and capability. By a letter dated 30 November 2017, Mr. Edusei, the timber merchant, informed GRA of the name change while reserving the binding and full effect of all prior transactions. 7 months after the name change, GRA and MOF commenced the unlawful award to SML of a string of specialized revenue assurance public procurement contracts running into late 2023 in respect of transaction audit and external price verification, downstream petroleum, upstream petroleum, and the mineral sector. For transaction audit services. After the name change, contract for transaction audit services. After the name change from SMEL to SML, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of the company were actively looking for an opportunity to reintroduce the Real Christian company back into their design of awarding its public procurement contracts for revenue assurance, notwithstanding its lack of experience and capacity. The opportunity presented itself in the most unusual way through the enforced wrestling of a public procurement contract from a company named West Blue Ghana Limited, through official Accra100 duress and browbeating. West Blue was incorporated in Ghana on 3 July 2012. It commenced business on 6 July 2012. Its core mandate, as stated in its object, is to facilitate trade reform and modernization programs with a particular focus on ICT implementation and management consultancy. By a contract dated 4 August 2015, Government of Ghana, acting through GRA and MOF, contracted West Blue for the provision of National Single Window Integrated Risk Management, NSWIRM, which entailed the delivery, installation, and maintenance of the project to enable GRA undertake core classification, valuation, and risk management functions of the destination inspection companies which were exiting the sector by 1 September 2015. Through this contract, West Blue became central to Ghana's trade facilitation and customs automation reforms until the contract's termination at the end of 2018, after which it became involved in legal disputes over outstanding payments and retained equipment. Members of the media, unbeknownst to West Blue, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML were eyeing its contract and devising means to dislodge it from the revenue assurance space and hand it over to SML. And by a letter dated 21 September 2017, authored by a company named Ports and Customs World Ghana Limited and addressed to the Minister of Finance, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML saw an opening, and they promptly took it. By the 21 September 2017 letter, Ports and Customs World Ghana Limited informed MOF that it was to purchase and take over shares in West Blue, and that it was committed to renegotiating the terms of the West Blue contract dated 4 August 2015 with a more competitive price and improved technology. Citing value for money audit by Crown Agents Ghana Limited on the West Blue contract, which recommended the option of renegotiation of the contract to give GOG better value for money, MOF responded to Ports and Customs World Ghana Limited with deadly effect. By a letter dated 25 January 2018, MOF stated that it would terminate the West Blue contract on 31 December 2018. However, before the indicated termination, it was going to reduce its contract price. How a cited recommended option of a renegotiation of the contract was drastically elevated to termination of the contract can only be explained by one hypothesis: that the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML were setting the tone for the unlawful substitution of West Blue with SML without the required statutory prior approvals, and also that the reduction of the contract price payable to West Blue was not a cost-saving measure in the least, but a design with the sole purpose of withering it down, stifling it, and handing its contract over to SML. The public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML knew they could not simply replace West Blue with SML before the indicated termination date of 31 December 2018 of the West Blue contract because of contractual obligations. And more pressing was the reckoning that SML's involvement would trigger the requirement of mandatory prior statutory approvals. Indeed, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML dared not return to PPA at this time with a request for approval of SML's involvement, since the only thing that had changed about the company since the 29 September 2017 rejection by PPA was just the company's name. Therefore, these public actors of SML decided to place SML on the lap of West Blue and did in fact force SML on West Blue as its supposed subcontractor on the West Blue contract without the mandatory prior statutory approvals. Thus, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML commenced participation in a series of outright criminal conduct by knowingly disregarding and breaching criminal prohibitions backed by a sense of impunity, as they view themselves as all too powerful. First, by a contract dated 1 June 2018, entitled Transaction Audit Services Agreement, and with the parties as GRA, West Blue, and SML, the company, which was rightfully characterized by PPA as having no proving capacity in terms of experience and provision of similar assignments in the sector, was introduced as a supposed subcontractor of West Blue. The recitals of the contract stated that SML desired to perform and West Blue desired to have SML perform transaction audit services for and on behalf of West Blue in respect of the latter's contract for the implementation of the National Single Window Project, and that GRA had agreed to pay for the services of SML. The 1 June 2018 agreement was certainly not a result of West Blue's initiative, and its conduct after the execution of the contract showed that it did not welcome SML as its supposed contractor. Indeed, it was openly opposed to SML acting as its supposed subcontractor. This was not a case of one private entity subcontracting another private entity to carry out specialized services for it in respect of a public procurement contract. This was a forced peel away of West Blue's mandate under the 4 August 2015 contract and an unlawful donation of the cutout mandate to SML by the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML. Under the 1 June 2018 agreement, West Blue was not the client of SML. GRA was the client of SML, and it had the obligation to pay SML. SML's invoices for payment were to be submitted not through West Blue, but directly to GRA. The only contractual obligation placed on GRA was that it should pay SML's fees directly to SML. West Blue had no compensation obligation to SML, its supposed subcontractor. Indeed, to all practical and legal purposes, SML was not performing any services for West Blue. SML's purported services were directly for GRA and not indirectly through West Blue. The specific contractual involvement of GRA in this at once clever and not so clever arrangement rendered it a sole source public procurement contract which required prior PPA approval. However, PPA's prior approval was neither sought for nor obtained for this contract. This unlawfulness was perpetrated with the full knowledge and involvement of the Minister of Finance. The duration of the 1 June 2018 agreement was tied with the termination date of West Blue's mother contract. The contract required SML to provide transaction audit services of CCVRs generated and issued at the pre-arrival processing phase of the implementation of the National Single Window Project. Upon completion of the audit and the statement of its findings, SML was required to then forward the transaction audit reports together with all relevant attachments to the Customs Post-Clearance Audit (PCA) officer through data exchange protocols agreed with West Blue. The Customs PCA officer was then required to review the transaction audit reports and either accept or reject them. In fairness, it did sound like a contractor and subcontractor relationship on paper, under which the subcontractor was expected to apply skill, expertise, and tools. However, the reality was starkly different. SML did not provide any such skill, expertise, and tools under the contract. It merely sat on the skill, expertise, and tools of West Blue in a pretend posturing sham of delivering transaction audit services for the Republic. It became painfully clear a little over a month after the signing of the 1 June 2018 contract that SML had no skill, expertise, and tools of its own, and that West Blue had been forced into an unwanted marriage, which required it to shoulder the assumed primary obligations of SML. It was as if West Blue was rather the subcontractor for SML, as it was now being required to work for SML. By mid-July 2018, the tenuous and artificial relationship between West Blue and SML was falling apart, and by November 2018, the enforced partnership had collapsed, evidenced by a series of letters and emails exchanged between the two entities. SML, on its part, was perpetually vexed by West Blue's apparent stance of ignoring the former's repeated requests for information. West Blue, on the other hand, was registering its consternation at the forced marriage by supplying little or no information to SML in a silent protest of a demonstration that SML's participation was needless and downright odious, and that it had no skill, expertise, and tools of its own to function. These events forcefully established that the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML compelled West Blue to take on SML as a purported subcontractor, notwithstanding repeated rejections by PPA for lack of capacity, coupled with the absence of demonstrated operational need. The recurring and unhappy friction between West Blue and SML underscores the fact that the former neither sought for nor welcomed the latter's involvement in its contractual dealings with the Republic, and that SML's entry unnecessarily disrupted the system of transaction audit and created an added layer of wasteful inefficiency in the sector. On 31 December 2018, and this date is very crucial, the 4 August 2015 West Blue contract for the provision of a national single window integrated risk management for the classification, valuation, and risk management in respect of imported goods terminated. So from 31st December 2018, West Blue had run out of a contract. On the same day, the 1 June 2018 Transaction Audit Services Agreement involving SML as the supposed contractor to West Blue under the latest 4 August 2015 also terminated, since it was sitting on West Blue's mother contract. Upon the termination of the mother contract and its offshoot so-called subcontract on 31 December 2018, any reasonable person would have thought that if the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML were not criminally minded and were not engaged in criminality and were not intending to engage further in criminality, they would have naturally rolled out SML from the GRA revenue assurance drive and properly and lawfully given it an above-the-table chance in competition with like-minded entities. However, intending to further perpetrate criminality and to profit from same, they purported to extend SML's engagement without the subsistence of the mother West Blue contract. Later, they then purported to unlawfully include West Blue in the extended service when they faced the formidable challenge of the obvious, which is that SML could not operate without the expertise of West Blue, and that SML's participation could only be justified by them if that participation rode on the back of West Blue. Extension of contract for transaction audit services. The events commencing from 1 January 2019, after the 31 December 2018 expiration of the two contracts, were most troubling, as the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML doubled down on their criminal conduct with an enhanced sense of impunity. By a contract titled Contract Extension and dated 1 January 2019 and signed between GRA and SML, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML purported to extend the 1 June 2018 contract involving GRA, West Blue, and SML for a month with the same terms and conditions in favor of SML. A striking feature of the contract extension was that it was executed without a corresponding renewal of West Blue's mother contract, upon which that contract sat, and upon which this new extension should have sat. The effect was that the contract extension sat on nothing, factually and legally. It stood alone in abject illegality and criminality without approval by PPA. Thus, on 1 January 2019, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML finally reached their intended and eventual goal, commenced in 2017, of their forcible entry of SML into the revenue assurance drive of GRA, with the successful dislodgement of West Blue and the donation of its contract to SML. Further, by not stipulating the specific duration of the contract, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML handed the company a potentially perpetual contract and thereby sought unsuccessfully to avoid the statutory requirement under Section 33(1) of the Public Financial Management Act 2016 Act 921 that provides a covered entity such as GRA should not enter into any agreement with a financial commitment that binds the government for more than one financial year, or that results in a contingent liability, as was the outlook of the contract, except where the financial commitment or the contingent liability is with the prior written approval of the Minister of Finance and authorized by Parliament in accordance with Article 181 of the Constitution. No sooner had this unlawful feat been attained than critical problems commenced their attendance on the new arrangement. SML still did not possess the skill, expertise, and tools to engage in transaction audit services, and it lacked a functioning system to receive and process CCVRs. And West Blue, upon whose tools and expertise SML relied to purport to perform the services, had been kicked out and was without a contract. Therefore, public official promoters of SML decided on a short-lived but brutal course of bullying West Blue further into submission to hand over its work to SML when West Blue had no contracts no longer with the state. By a letter dated 10 January 2019, the Commissioner of the Customs Division of GRA, Accra100, directed West Blue to cause the transfer of the transaction audit services for the top 20 imports to SML with effect from 11 January 2019. For added measure, Mr. Accra100 threw in a threat that if West Blue failed to cause the transfer, it will not be paid its outstanding fees for December 2018, and thereafter, for any month in which it failed to comply with the directive, forgetting that West Blue had exited the service and it no longer had a contract with the Republic. In that same letter, Mr. Accra100 advised SML to position itself by taking the necessary steps to take over the transaction audit services for the top 20 imports from West Blue. This letter was copied to the Minister of Finance, the Commissioner General of GRA, and the Chief Executive of SML. Then, by a letter dated 15 January 2019, West Blue responded to the directive by pointing out the obvious, that the 1 June 2018 arrangement between GRA, West Blue, and SML had expired on 31 December 2018. Nonetheless, it explained that it had been submitting the required information to SML, but that it encountered some challenges in the last quarter of 2018. This letter was also copied to the Minister of Finance, the Commissioner General of GRA, and the Chief Executive of SML. However, on the same day, and reeling under the intense bullying of the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML, and faced with the open threats by Mr. Accra100 of the non-payment of his outstanding December 2018 fees should it fail to comply with the directive, West Blue handed over the transaction audit services for the top 20 imports between October and December 2018 to SML, not through any established system, but this time on a universal serial bus, USB drive. Upon receipt of West Blue's 15 January 2019 response, the public sponsors of SML upped their unlawful conduct. By a letter dated 23 January 2019 and addressed to the Chief Executive of West Blue, Mr. Accra100 stated that though West Blue's contract with SML had expired on 31 December, he was advising West Blue to proceed under the same terms and effectively collaborate with SML until further notice. This letter was also copied to the Minister of Finance, the Commissioner General of GRA, and the Chief Executive of SML. This directive, dressed by way of an advice, blurred all good sense and the exercise of lawful authority. In effect, Mr. Accra100, by the 23 January 2019 letter, was seeking to effectively resurrect the expired 1 June 2018 contract involving GRA, West Blue, and SML. And by necessary extension, the terminated West Blue mother contract of 4 August 2015 to the benefit of the public official promoters sponsors. Our conclusion becomes even more telling on the consideration that upon retirement as the Commissioner of the Customs Division of GRA, Mr. Accra100 took up appointment as the General Manager of SML, coloring his actions while in office as an inducement for future reward of a retirement benefit and use of public office for private benefit. Contract for additional services, external verification. The public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML then proceeded to firmly entrench the company in the public revenue assurance space by once again mounting another contract upon a contract which was itself based on nothing. So by a contract dated 1 April 2019 between GRA and SML, recited as made pursuant to the 1 January 2019 contract extension, GRA appointed SML to provide external services to Customs Technical Services Bureau, CTSB. This contract was reckless by all accounts, as it was executed and implemented at a time when SML still did not possess the capacity, experience, and expertise to perform the services it was originally engaged to deliver. It beats the imagination then that the public official, promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML added on additional services in respect of which the company had absolutely no skill, expertise, experience, and capacity. It was a case of more money for no work, and much like the 1 January 2019 contract, the 1 April 2019 contract was bedeviled by all the unlawfulness of the absence of statutory prior approvals by PPA and Parliament. Now, having estimated that SML had been cleaned up enough to gain acceptance by July 2019, the chief public official, promoter, sponsor, and patron of SML, Mr. Oforiatta, commends the more direct involvement in the company's activities and interface with public institutions to secure more public contracts for the company, and also to ensure that its path to that attainment was well cleared and smoothened. On the instructions of Mr. Oforiatta, the technical advisor ICT at MOF, by an email dated 16 July 2019, invited the controlling mind of West Blue to a meeting with Mr. Oforiatta at the boardroom of the Minister of Finance, slated for 17 July 2019. On 17 July 2019, Mr. Oforiatta hosted SML and West Blue in his office, and at that meeting it was resolved that West Blue should reactivate its web service to SML by transmitting all CCVR data in respect of January to June 2019. Now, during all this period, Mr. Oforiatta's increased participation in personally promoting the cause of SML had become pronounced. On 29 August 2019, he directed his technical advisor through his chef de cabinet, Mr. Enesakori, to lead the integration of West Blue and SML alongside the new leadership of the Customs Technical Services Bureau. Mr. Oforiatta was being copied in every email chain, and this is highly significant because as Minister of Finance, he was placed in direct knowledge of SML's operational and tool incapacity, and that it was hardly performing any service to deserve the payment of fees. Had he not been personally benefiting from SML's unlawfully procured contracts, the open display by SML of lack of capacity, expertise, and tools would have immediately triggered his intervention to halt payments to SML and demand accountability. Instead, he looked on conspiratorially in silence while endorsing and approving payments to SML from the Consolidated Fund, Petroleum Revenue Account, and Tax Refund Account with no technical or operational basis. The OSP investigation shows that all the troubleshooting displayed during this period was born of the unlawful imposition of SML in the space and the still lingering reality of SML's lack of CVRs, while West Blue was under no legal obligation to release the vital data to it. As a result, of capacity to carry out transaction audit and external price verification 15 months after its engagement. Company had no system in place to receive CCVRs, while West Blue was under no legal obligation to release the vital data to it. As a result, the work went undone until SML continued, and it went undone, yet SML continued to be paid. It is highly worrisome that though SML were doing practically nothing by way of transaction, and the 1 April 2019 contracts for additional services between GRA and SML were of no real benefit to the Republic. Audit and external price verification, GRA kept authorizing steady payments to the company. The OSP investigation shows that the 1 June 2018 contract involving GRA, West Blue, and SML, the 1 January 2019 contract extension between GRA and SML, and the 1 April 2019 contracts for additional services between GRA and SML were of no real benefit to the Republic and an unnecessary drain on the public purse. Indeed, all the way into May 2021, SML was displaying its incapacity by seeking integration into the transaction audit and external price verification systems by 2 requests, one dated 12 May 2021 and 15 May 2021. At this point, on 20 September 2019, MOF, by a press release, announced that Mr. Nti would retire, and along came in the Reverend Amishadai Owusu Amwa. Verification services. I'm winding down a bit. This is important. From October 2019, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML enhanced their unlawful conduct to a frightening degree. On 3 October 2019, 2 agreements were signed. GRA and SML signed a contract for the consolidation of transaction audit services and external verification services. The previous standalone contracts, which were masqueraded, investigation shows that SML did not submit a single invoice in respect of this contract and under its predecessor standalone contracts. In addition, SML did not transmit the required reports to the CTSB and PCA officers. Nonetheless, GRA kept a constant stream of automatic payments to SML under this contract and under its predecessor standalone. Strategic investiture of SML in the public revenue assurance space became a windfall of automatic payments detached from the performance of actual work and without monitoring and verification. On the same day, the second contract was signed with SML for the measurement audit of downstream petroleum products. This referenced the previous contracts, including the ones signed on the same day, that having regard to the expertise of SML in providing, SML was handed another contract to undertake a comprehensive review of workflow and operations within the downstream offloading, uploading and offloading points. In transaction audit service, the services being rendered by SML to GRA was being extended to operations within the downstream petroleum sector. Upon this official falsehood, SML was handed another contract to undertake a comprehensive review of workflow and operations within the downstream offloading, uploading and offloading points. The OSP investigation shows that the contract for measurement audit of downstream petroleum products was an unnecessary parallel layer, since the service was already being performed satisfactorily by NPA, that's the National Petroleum Authority, and customs officials. Also, SML's measuring system was unsuitable for measurements at several depots, rendering its services of no import in respect of those depots. NPA was quite concerned, and it promptly anticipated the clear and present danger of duplication. However, the industry had instituted or was about to institute. The multi-term of 5 years duration of these contracts also bound the government to financial commitments for more than a year and resulted in a contingent liability, and also triggered the requirement for ministerial approval and authorization by Parliament. The OSP investigation did not uncover a prior written approval by the Minister of Finance of the 3 October 2019 contracts. However, Mr. Oforiatta's involvement in the procurement of the contracts by his actions show that he firmly approved of the contracts, even if not in writing. Excuse me. Therefore, if the claim in his defense the Ministry of Lands is and that he Forestry
did not write to
and the
approve the
Ministry of
contracts,
Energy,
and so
falsely touting the unique expertise of SML under those contracts. On the other hand, if the claim is that Mr. Oforiatta was unaware of the execution of those contracts, then it is a debased form of willful blindness for the same reasons. The OSP investigation established that there was no parliamentary authorization for these contracts either. Further, and very troubling, both contracts were signed by Mr. Nti on behalf of GRA on 3 October 2019, although he had retired on 1 October 2019, and Reverend Owusu Amwa had assumed office as acting GRA Commissioner General on 1 October 2019. This wanton illegality, after signing a public procurement contract 2 days after retirement, was perpetrated by these public promoters of SML by ensuring that their co-conspirator, Mr. Inti, signed the contracts before clearing his desk at GRA, although he was no longer the Commissioner General on that day, because they were unsure of whether the newly installed Reverend Minister head of GRA would team play and sign the contracts. They need not have worried. This is because Reverend Uswamwa quickly joined in on the conspiracy to unlawfully invest SML in the Public Revenue Assurance Project. By the close of 2018, the government has served notice that it was about to introduce Integrated Customs Management System, ICAMS, and that it was discontinuing the services of all the players in the industry in the customs setup. This notice had been circulated to all the players except SML. Now, the reason why they did not serve this notice on SML, which later came back to haunt SML, was that they had no intention of discontinuing the service of SML, although the government, through a letter authored by the senior minister, Yao Safumanfu, on 16 April 2020, notified the companies that the new system would take off the midnight preceding 20 April 2020, and from which date all customs processes would take place within ICAMS. He then invited the companies, including SML, to submit any justifiable claims they may be entitled to following the discontinuation of their service. It is evidently clear that as far as the government itself was concerned, the purported services of SML in the customs setup ended on 28 April 2020. Not so with the public official, sponsors, patrons, and promoters of SML. In June 2020, by which time Reverend Owusu-Amwa had fully joined the conspiracy, as he had assumed office on 1 October 2019, but without seeing a single invoice backed by a verified report from SML in respect of transaction audit and external price verification services, he was happily signing off and supervising automatic payments to SML. PPA ratification of the 3 October 2019 SML contracts. By a letter dated 28 July 2020, the Commissioner General of GRA requested PPA to ratify the October 2019 dual contracts. Crucially, Reverend Owusu-Amwa failed to disclose that in 2017, his predecessor had unsuccessfully thrice presented the company to PPA under a different name, SMEL, which had just been switched to SML. PPA set up an investigation team the next day with the object of investigating the circumstances under which the contracts were procured without the prior approval of PPA, and the authoring of a report to assist the PPA board to process the GRS request. The least said about the PPA investigation, the better. The OSP investigation shows that the investigation was shallow and incomplete, and the resultant report was outrightly misleading in parts. Though they had SML's incorporation records before them, the PPA investigators ignored that and rather chose to focus on the objects, Though they had SML's incorporation records before them, the PPA investigators chose to ignore that and rather focus on the application for ratification by the Commissioner General of GRA. Had the PPA investigators paid the slightest regard to PPA's own record of GRA and SML, it would have occurred to them to inquire as to why a company incorporated in 2017 and serially rejected by PPA in 2017 was nonetheless handed the same and additional contracts of grave national import in 2018. In the end, a PPA investigation merely seemed like a box-ticking formality, as the investigators ignored PPA's own records on the transaction file of GRA and SML, and they submitted to the board a recommendation that the contract should be ratified. Now, the board technical committee meeting of PPA, which was held on 26 August 2020, deliberated on the investigation report and approved this recommendation. It seems to us that the PPA board itself was overwhelmed with such requests for ratification, as that was one of 7 applications considered that day. They expressed the grave concern that it had become the norm that public agencies were going ahead of themselves by awarding sole sourcing contracts before coming to PPA for ratification. By a letter dated 27 August 2020, the acting chief executive of PPA communicated to the commissioner of GRA that PPA had ratified GRA's decision to single source SML to provide consultancy services for transaction audit, external verification, and measurement of downstream petroleum products. Now, the effect of the PPA ratification. Generally, PPA ratification of covered contracts procured without approval does not absolve implicated persons of responsibility of their actions, except where the procurement of the contract was unavoidable in the peculiar circumstances. The OSP investigation is focused on criminal conduct in the context of corruption and corruption-related offenses. On this score, in the province of the criminal law, PPA ratification of covered contracts procured without prior approval does not erase criminal conduct, and it does not extinguish criminal culpability. And this is especially so in respect of the inchoate offenses of attempt and conspiracy to commit any of the prohibited acts described under Section 92 of the Public Procurement Act. The OSP investigation shows that the public official sponsors of SML conspired to directly and indirectly influence the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage in the award of the various procurement contracts to SML, contrary to Section 23(1) of the Criminal Offences Act and Section 92(2)(b) of the Public Procurement Act. And they went beyond this to commit acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. That is to say, they agreed to act together with the common purpose to directly and indirectly influence the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage in the award of the various procurement contracts to SML. These acts are unaffected by PPA ratification in the sense that in our criminal jurisprudence, the crime of conspiracy was committed the moment the words of agreement were spoken by these public official actors, whether with or without previous consent or deliberation. Therefore, nothing in the form of a ratification of the procurements can affect that. Further, this was not a case of unavoidable procurement of SML. This was a coldly calculated conspiracy to defy PPA after the 2017 rejections of the company by awarding it with the procurement contracts anyway, notwithstanding these grave concerns raised by PPA about its lack of capacity, expertise, and experience. Then again, the PPA ratification did not cure the absence of the quite distinct mandatory authorization by Parliament. Thus, the contract still stood in illegality. Then came the contract for consolidation of revenue assurance services, upstream petroleum audit. This is the last one, and we are winding down. I'm tiring you down. It's on purpose to punish you. After running SML unlawfully alongside ICAMS and unnecessarily, illegally inserting the company in the downstream petroleum revenue assurance model for 2 years, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML rolled out their biggest and final act, aimed at imposing SML as the sole entity to undertake revenue assurance through a deliberate and coordinated plot spearheaded directly by Mr. Friata himself and reinforced by his chef de cabinet, Mr. Akori, and Reverend Usuamwa. The plan was to consolidate the unlawfully procured revenue assurance contracts and enhance the largesse further to SML by awarding it with upstream petroleum audit and mineral audit services. I'm sparing us all a bit of time. Now, the present status of transaction audit and external price verification services. The OSP investigation shows that the total fees paid to SML under the transaction audit and external price verification contracts amount to 506,728,334 cedis 21 pesos between July 2018 and December 2024. These payments were effected automatically, contrary to the terms of the various contracts, without reference to actual work done, and without the submission by SML of reports to the PCA and CTSB units for verification, and without the submission of invoices by SML, notwithstanding the reality that SML performed very minimally or at all by way of these contract services. The status of downstream petroleum audit. It will be recalled that the measurement audit for downstream petroleum agreement was one of two contracts unlawfully signed by Mr. Inti on 3 October 2019 as Commissioner General of GRA, though he retired on 1 October 2019. SML was required to develop and implement an end-to-end electronic metering management system dedicated solely to fiscal measurement aimed at loss prevention. By deploying very accurate computerized fiscal metering system, identifying quantities of petroleum products delivered to the bulk distribution center depots per day and month. Excuse me. The OSP investigation shows that SML's participation in downstream petroleum audit was unnecessary, and that its monthly audit reports were unreliable, as its metering system was unsuitable for the design of the pipes at several depots. Further, SML could not integrate into ICAMS and the MPA system, that's the ERDMS. Therefore, it was compelled to resort to way-bill scanning at some point as a substitute for end-to-end electronic monitoring. Notwithstanding these known inhibiting factors, the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML continue to disburse substantial sums of public funds to the company. In early September 2020, SML submitted its first audit report for July, August, and September 2020. The company claimed in the report that it had observed a sharp increment in petroleum products lifting of the depots at which it had installed its metering system commencing from May 2020, when it deployed its meters to measure lifted volumes. In addition, it stated that its readings for the period were about the same as that of MPA, and that this attested to the fact that its readings were reliable and could be depended on for the revenue assurance processes. Further, the company claimed that the pattern of increase could be attributed to the effective monitoring by the introduction of its electronic meter monitoring system and the vigilance of customs officers. This report drew a sharp rebuttal from the Commissioner of Customs Division of GRA, Colonel Damois, retired. By a letter dated 3 September 2020 and addressed to SML, he stated, "Your report on revenue savings has been considered. However, we are unable to accept conclusively that the growth in revenue is a result of the installation of meters by SML." Notwithstanding this remarkable awareness of SML's false claims, Colonel Damois neither recommended suspension nor insisted on remedial action, and he participated in the contrived system of unjustifiable payments to SML, even when further evidence of SML's technological incapacity came to his attention in April 2021 through the service provider for ICAMS. SML continued its fantastically false claims into early 2021. It then continued its claims of being indispensable in the industry all the way through 2022. However, in the first half of 2023, SML was made to confront reality. It changed its tone in its audit reports as a result of design unsuitability problems discovered in respect of its meters, and that corrective measures were required for accurate readings. The language in its June 2023 audit report was subdued. It declared that the volumes declared in ICAMS tallied with that recorded by SML. From August 2023 running into 2025, its language became contrite and restitutive. As now, the ICAMS volumes began outstripping SML's readings. Members of the media, the OSP investigation shows that SML's meters were Honeywell VersaFlow TWS 9000W multipath ultrasonic flow meters. And according to the Ghana Standards Authority, which is the custodian of weights and measures, these meters are attractive for measurement in the oil and gas industry because of their non-intrusive clamp-on installation, which does not require welding or cutting, and that the use of these meters ensures high accuracy as opposed to single-path ultrasonic flow meters. However, on SML's own showing from its audit report from August 2023, added to an operational shortfall of not having fixed meters in at least 5 depots, its metering system was encountering substantial physical and operational challenges in a good number of the depots, resulting in inability of measurements tabled as follows. 1. SML's meters were unable to measure residual fuel oil because the temperature and fluid viscosity were too high for clamping and performance of ultrasonic flow meters. 2. SML did not measure volumes at depots that load products at atmospheric pressure using natural gravity because ultrasonic flow meters are unsuitable for work in such conditions. 3. SML did not measure volumes at depots where flows of petroleum products go through underground pipelines, since it was physically impossible to clamp the meters on underground pipelines. To address some of these concerns, SML perennially expressed the intention of installing an automatic tank gauging system. It fixed 8 out of 29 depots. The OSP investigation also discovered that the high discrepancy in readings that SML kept reporting from June 2020 through December 2022 was largely due to SML's meters reading vibrations and sounds from trucks as they discharge petroleum products at night. Further, the meters sometimes recorded pressurized water used in washing the pipes and driving products through the pipes. The OSP investigation shows that the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML were fully aware of the acute shortfall of SML service in the downstream petroleum sector, yet they persisted in their patronage by permitting it to operate and religiously authorizing payments to it while they remained in a lethargic state of willful blindness. This could only have been for their private benefit. Indeed, as recently as January 2025, SML was exhibiting inability of comprehending the loading process through ERDMS and ICAMS. This was evidenced in a letter dated 17 January 2025 by the head of petroleum operations at GRA addressed to the managing director of SML. In respect of the upstream petroleum and minerals audit, it didn't take off as a result of the presidential directive for suspension and as a result of the OSP investigation. A central issue arising from the automatic payments by GRA to SML in respect of downstream petroleum audit is that GRA, the Central Tax Authority, failed to deduct statutory taxes totaling 13,380,000 cedis. GRA subsequently, in July 2024, offset this tax component. However, the penal component of 18,800,000 cedis remain outstanding. In addition, there is an outstanding pay-as-you-earn tax liability of 346,967 cedis, 53 pesos. Now I'm coming to an end. The KPMG audit and the OSP investigation. We recall that while OSP's preliminary findings accorded with the major factual findings in the KPMG report, the OSP found itself unable to agree with some major conclusions drawn by KPMG, especially in respect of accountability and value for money. This is because the OSP investigation shows that the KPMG report was placatory in material respects, as it sought to beatify SML by ignoring the fact that it did not possess independent reconciliation algorithms and audit tools, and that it was plying its purported trade alongside ICAMS and ERDMS without adding any real value to the products of these established processes. Indeed, the causal relationship KPMG sought to draw between improvements in the downstream petroleum audit sector and SML services was non-existent. The OSP agrees with KPMG on its conclusion that there was no specifically commissioned and purpose needs assessment report. However, KPMG's narrative on contracting methodology did not quite examine SML's incapacity at inception. In respect of transaction audit and external price verification services, KPMG concluded that SML delivered partially and that GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the services. KPMG based this conclusion on its observation that SML submitted some of the expected reports and that in respect of some, it sources data from wrong documents. However, the OSP found no verifiable evidence of the said reports in GRA's records or in the records of SML as having been transmitted to PCA and CTSB for verification. Further, the PCA unit confirmed during the OSP investigation that no such report came to its attention. Then again, there was no critical examination as to the substantive quality and validity of the said reports referred to by KPMG. Indeed, KPMG's own officials who attended the OSP during the investigation failed to substantiate the claim of partial delivery when they were questioned by OSP officials. They could not provide any documentary evidence to show up their own claims. Then, there is the payment methodology which tells a different story, which is that GRA was paying SML automatically without the submission by SML of a single invoice backed by verified reports. In respect of measurement audit for downstream petroleum, KPMG concluded that there was reported incremental volume that is attributable to the involvement of SML determined at 1.70 billion liters for the period, which translates to incremental revenue of 2.5 billion cedis attributable to the involvement of SML. The OSP firmly disagrees with this conclusion by KPMG. Indeed, the OSP investigation shows that KPMG relied heavily on trend analysis of petroleum lifting volumes between 2018 and 2013, and not so much on the actual work done by SML, and without much consideration of the impact of the concurrent implementation of ERDMS and ICAMS during that period. These systemic upgrades surely accounted for much more accountability and records of lifting volumes. KPMG later contradicted itself in its own report by acknowledging that revenue growth in this period resulted from macroeconomic factors such as pricing and demand, and regulatory enforcement and increased taxes. In any case, the OSP investigation shows that SML's participation in downstream petroleum audit was unnecessary, and that its monthly audit reports were unreliable. As I stated, its metering system was unsuitable for the design of the pipes and operational modes at several depots. Post-KPMG audit. Following the KPMG audit, MOF, GRA, and SML acted on the KPMG recommendation of the consideration of shifting from a variable to a fixed fee structure in respect of downstream petroleum products audit. So by a memorandum of understanding signed on 1 November 2024, they changed the variable fee mechanism to a monthly fixed fee of 22,629,204 cedis 95 pesos, being, they stated, equivalent of 1,432,228 United States dollars 16 cents, inclusive of all taxes, at the prevailing Bank of Ghana exchange rate, which operated on 1st October 2024. In our estimation, the CD version of the stated fixed monthly fee in the 1 November 2024 addendum is unnecessarily deceptive, as the party's real intention as captured in clause 13 of the MOU itself is a monthly fee of the stated figure in United States dollars. GRA has not paid SML since December 2024 as a result of the OSP investigation. And ladies and gentlemen of the press, action in respect of key actors. The outcome of the investigation is that the OSP will charge the following persons with various corruption and corruption-related offenses before the end of November 2025. 1. Kenneth Nanayao Oforiatta, former Minister of Finance. 2. Ernest Akori, Chef de Cabinet to Kenneth Nanayao Oforiatta as Minister of Finance. 3. Emmanuel Kofinti, former Commissioner General of Ghana Revenue Authority. 4. Amishadai Owusu-Amoah, former Commissioner General of Ghana Revenue Authority. 5. Isaac Krentzel, former Commissioner of the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority and General Manager of Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. 6. Kwejo Damwa, former Commissioner of the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority and Member of Parliament for German South constituency. As part of the process, the OSP will seek to recover the financial loss caused to the Republic from the persons listed above. Also, the OSP will recover a total amount of 125 million cedis from SML by way of a disgorgement of unjust richness of overpayment by the return of the benefit of this amount it obtained unfairly at the expense of the Republic. This amount was arrived on two considerations. First, the participation of SML in the public revenue assurance regime was based on largely undeserved automatic payments detached from performance. Second, the figure was adjusted on a quantum meru basis. This is a legal doctrine that developed the English common law as a form of implied contract or quasi-contract to ensure that the person who conferred a benefit on another received compensation, even when no valid contract existed. The courts introduced the doctrine as an equitable remedy to prevent unjust arrangements, recognizing that fairness sometimes required payment even without an enforceable agreement. In the present context, the OSP configured the doctrine in respect of adjusting the fair value of the investments made by SML in pursuance of performing its obligations under the various contracts, even where the contracts were procured unlawfully and even where services were minimally performed or not performed at all, on the back of SML's reasonable expectations created under the various contracts which were awarded to it by high-ranking public officials who represented ostensible authority and statutory and regulatory compliance to that private company. The investments include the setting up and maintenance of two offices by SML, one in Accra and the other in Tema, purpose only. Even then, the basis of the supposed comparison was a collection of disappearing acts of no worthy utility. And even now, some officers of GRA are issuing letters and statements along the lines of the pretense that this has been worthwhile for the nation. Such statements are feeble attempts at face saving, and they do not operate to extinguish the criminal culpability of the public official promoters, sponsors, and patrons of SML. However, there is much wisdom and force in the institution of real revenue assurance, as it involves the identification, prevention, and correction of revenue leakages, thereby enhancing the public purse. In the estimation of the OSP, GRA did right by finally terminating the transaction audit and price and external price verification aspects of SML's engagement in November 2024. The OSP recommends that that termination should be made to lie where it fell, as SML showed a classless non-performance of the service it was unlawfully engaged to perform in the sector. Further, the OSP can neither choose nor recommend contractual partners for public institutions. Therefore, if in the estimation of MOF and GRA, they are desirous of retaining SML in other areas of revenue assurance, then critical needs assessment should be performed, and the ministry and its regulatory agency must ensure that all statutory and regulatory prior approvals and licenses are obtained, and further, that contractual obligations are mounted on expertise, experience, and capability based on responsible value for money verification and monitoring constructs. The OSP highly commends Evans Eziamo Mensah Ajua Adubia Owusu, and Manase Azuri Awuni. We are very grateful for your service. Ghanaians, thank you. Extradition matters. It would occur to you in my submission that the main suspect in respect of the concluded SML investigations is the former finance minister, or a former finance minister, Kenneth Nanaya Oforiata. We recall that in February, the OSP declared him a fugitive from justice and placed him on our list of wanted persons. The OSP drew a lot of flack that we were going after a very sick person. But our intel told us, and we very well knew, and we kept insisting and telling Ghanaians, that he just did not want to come into the country voluntarily to answer to these charges. We did not relent, even in the face of the negativity. We went ahead. When we relaxed, placing him on the list of wanted persons on representations that he may show up at a certain time, some members of the public took it as weakness in us. Although what we were doing was that if a person
Accra100
says that they are so ill that they cannot show up, you grant them that regard for them to heal before they come in. But on his own stated date, he failed to show up, whereupon we placed him back on the list of wanted persons. Then we withdrew more negative flack that we were talking too much. But all that time, we knew exactly what we were doing because our intelligence was solid, that this person just didn't want to come to the country voluntarily. By March of 2025, we had collected all the evidence that we needed to aid in the prosecution of this matter. However, two things were outstanding. One, we needed official verification of a lot of the items that we had intercepted, especially in respect of communication. And this required the input of our major foreign partners. Indeed, the packet arrived on Monday in validation of what we had way back in March. Then, early June, I think it was 10th June, we carried out further searches and seizures at two offices of SML, one in Accra100 and one in Tema. And there we retrieved computer servers and hard drives that had to be subjected to forensic examination. This work is not done overnight. And it is upon this reason that we informed the Attorney General when we kick-started the extradition process that the dockets had not been bound up yet because we were waiting for something. At the OSP, we do not talk lightly. We knew what we were waiting for, and we have them fully now. We have uncovered all that is contained on the computer servers and the hard drives. And now on Monday, with the gracious assistance of our major foreign partner, we have the validation of the evidence that we had way back in March 2013. So, on 2nd June 2020, we triggered the extradition request because by March, as we said, we had all the evidence we needed. We only needed official validation of them. That is why we triggered the extradition request on 2nd June 2020 through the Chief of Staff. The past few weeks, we are once again drawing negative flag that we who put him on our list of wanted persons that the OSP that declared him wanted, that the OSP that declared him a fugitive from justice, that the OSP that went to Interpol in record time of 48 hours and placed him on Interpol's red notice, we were stalling the case and that we were wasting time. But once again, as I said, we knew what we were doing and we knew what we were waiting for. And last week when the Attorney General addressed the media, he said something very poignant. He said these financial investigations require time and patience. And we ask, give us that regard of time and patience. We will deliver the results we wanted, like this. And as I said, before the expiration of November 2025, we will charge all these persons that I listed before the criminal courts. We will not stultify our own investigations. We will not delay our own investigations. We would do it right. We will be patient. We will be meticulous. We would have all the expertise in the world examine all, because we only have one shot.
Accra100.5.
We cannot go back, forth with it. Each other. We are working for the same cause, which is the cause of the Republic of Ghana. And we cannot be at loggerheads. We cannot be in dispute. Sometimes personalities and how one wants to do something may clash a bit, but that should not be taken as dispute or disagreement. Many of you do not know my relationship with the Attorney General. He is like a big brother to me. He taught me at Legon, and he also was part of my training. Indeed, we formed a firm together. And indeed, I was like his foreman even when he was putting up his first building in Accra. This is our relationship. The relationship is such that because he trained me and he taught me, I have a bit of him in me. He doesn't have a bit of me in him. And so sometimes my display of his bit in me stirs him up a bit. But at the end of the day, just as we were doing in private practice, we will bicker at home. But our product, when we finally churn it out, will be most robust and most fruitful. And this is our promise to Ghana, that we are working together. We cannot but work together. And we are going to work together in full collaboration, see to the end of this matter. Semu wa sembisa eye. Munya sembisa so eye pa was my bread.
All right, so that's it live on Accra100.5, a farm citizen show. A presser from the office of the special prosecutor, Ira Kisi Ejabin, and or the NDN has to do with the relationship with the Attorney General, and that's what I said. Attorney General Atre Nadia Peng, and there was a time in the life of their relationship. Attorney General, he is in the first house, not just Ono and foreman, and all that. And so there's good relationship between Onokisi Ajabin and that of the Attorney General. So the bottom line, I think that he okay, never be brave, and some of those things may wakama matia. So
you say to that,
how with all due respect, I respect his office, but me when irrelevant. He now sounds like a broken record. Just a repetition. This story of SMLD and all those ones. And maybe for the purpose of say or potoyinti kakra ibetimi enye frame ni say adwumaku bia na yefe no SMEL na wo kire say SMEL no na some ye auditing agenda bi eboa GRA efa downstream petroleum sene be benya revenue assurance na sika ebia anka ehwere oman no ombetimi aboa na yenye ne ye ebio there were times there were some contaminations of fuel and all those ones until no one adwuma nso beboa na niema akoso yie ewo the downstream petroleum. But we should not forget SME for so many times they tried. Now omunya PPA approval because according to the Public Procurement Authority, now omuni akwademubia they had no experience, or if they had, it was very little. Inti as much as they tried, no, omantimi anya sa opportunity no until omukoda no ho no SML 7 months later omudane no yen SML no umunya sa contract na Office of the Special Prosecutor kisi ejabi ekase mu kire se one techna company a wo technology solutions ana obi te se owura kenuforiata nkrofo a no me great backbone, and in fact owura kenuforiata was single out say on no that technical brain behind that SML you know say he's one if not the leading candidate of Omwa on a charge one. Eti me no ka say as a 2024 sika na yetria ama SML so mon konko yesa adwuma no about 1.4 billion. But you see utie kisi ejabi nkomon mu a nia ehu, and I'll come there. You see the question is saying the crack say say inkofo we Ghana faso afa kweti kwanso ama Ghana you're raping is saying now the crack is saying after all this broforwardness, after all this State of Nation address, the crack is saying after 2 hours Accra100 we airtime now na motoye for the interest of Ghana ye dear TSN say me crack is saying, are we just interested in brofu? And maybe as a word of advice to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, communicate so that laymen better as here. Now, some technical terms, legal jargons, and I could say, yes, that is what we are saying. And the point they are making is that they were falling on their foreign partners, and so they needed to do a validation of the extradition order and the account. Look, some of us, some of us will be young, but they are following near much, and when we see, people are lying through their teeth, we see it. The bottom line here, kisia jabe wo katre and say, wa downful, so teacher say, bra pennies or papa ne attorney general is because stream side, lawyer stream side, deputy AG, ma Ghana 40 as say, mum fucking for yata docket nemra, not printing a chamo fema. It is since when Anna docket in here ready? Since when? Nancy Anna papa beka as way. And I say, so papa na mom tuja. Ama the likes of Otuda ko ne omo aka yantena kasafidie so anka ya dwan kyerɛ mu a anka mo hunu. You are just wasting the taxpayers' money. And if I had my way, me go sa office no na workers na honum no ya try me go other ministries so we cannot keep on wasting our monies like that. So far I instituted the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Just give me a candidate who is behind bars, and yet we still pay them. Look at the number of workers our Office of the Special Prosecutor. With no disrespect to you if we're a worker there. I know, say, unemployment, you need to get something out of your joblessness. If I'll call for a collapse of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, of course, I'll be sensitive enough to add, say, other government agencies or other government ministries. So. But I don't see why we should keep that office and spend so much money. In any case, how different is it from the Economic and Organized Crime Office, Yoko? How different is the Office of the Special Prosecutor job from Economic and Organized Crime Office? How different is it? Anywhere you look at it, corruption and corruption-related offenses, organized crime, in a way, if it has to do with fraud, whatever. How different is it? How different is it? National Investigation Bureau, formerly BNI, Ejumaya OSPA, can they do it? Charlie, we don't waste money for the country. A lot of people need money for very, very important things, and we just push money in keeping office. It's a waste of everybody's time. Look, I respect you as a lawyer. You may be seasoned. I respect office. At least me senior Krugum Honum, so I'm careful when I'm talking about such matters near there. But I think it's a total waste of our time. 2 hours now, kind of 1 hour, 50 something minutes, just repetition, repertoire. I don't a musician. Who doesn't know the SML story? Who doesn't know? Near okay, yeah, to say, it could be a CIA and Crawford or charge you with corruption and corruption related offenses. Only park we want me at say a Juma Crampa, your contract woman, no many experience. They fell on one West Blue company. West Blue no crampo any GRE, any contract. And yet omu many go so call echo. So at a point, Kenuforiata Efra West Blue, when West Blue fell out. Or down say, I'm making sure say, microphone by Juma. And SML, any experience now they realize say now they can fall off. Meanwhile, the needed tools are so no many be. All these things have been established. It's in a crack run, say. Me, I'm not interested in brofu and legal jargon. I am interested in practicality. Arrest a crofano or cromhanamro. America for here, there. They come take our people as slaves, and when we need our own from America, what is taking us forever? What kind of joke comedy is that? You see, this country, because if we run a country like this, I'm sorry, there's no future. I'm sorry. No. Maybe that my tongue crew na machiche obian baby aperikokota. What kind of aggro is that? It's the CI Crawford. When was the last time a power back actually say Kenuforiata has been on the red alert of the Interpol? When? So many weeks ago, even months ago. It is our time now doing to red alerts. Friend fugitive no. Now I say onyan factor na. A friend and the foreign partners no. I'm a factor na. It on what basis? On what factual account? I know the papa too. A red alert of the Interpol. On what basis? And he called him a fugitive. And Kwame, adia bakure hunu kra ne say. Usu hwemu a GR kra person me say sa SML kra me yadwuma kakra. And yes, who more cranny say we KPMG report na based on your papa can KPMG crampo any OSP crab boy brakakra. Person what say SML just said they had certain failures, but at a point omutimi yadwuma kakra. Eti I am perceiving say nyama we aye ku kra with some. I'm telling you, mark today's date. Mark today's date. Because KPMG a reputable company, audit firm. Because was it 2012 election? So many more year Juma. What? It was KPMG. So KPMG are one of the most reputable companies we have in our country. Etina Samu Beka same way. Now we are 1.4 billion for less job done. Near Tianum like how? My main Crawford now boom or say Kenuforiata. These are people I are charging them with corruption and corruption related offenses. Kenuforiata. Now, but you're streaming live on Facebook. You're streaming live on Facebook. Oba, what do you feel about Kisia Jabin? Me, I don't feel good about him. I'm telling you. You know, I don't know how to hide my feelings. I'm not a coward journalist. Anna, me journalists are like me pressing. Me cannot crash now. Yeah. Many can offer that and come free because I am perceiving like Kisia Jabin here. Nkasa wa beken. Wa here na akwen the last day or job war. Madam Kachiro. And Mr. President, woman yen eni mebu hon ma ye kaya no act fast am I. What do I say? Eni men kwaye okrom o mani nje sa economy ni dia wo hye but corruption related cases in Accra. And we know you will deliver, but certain element, will deliver. So we delay. Get them out, Mr. President, get them out. Eti Kenuforiata is here and they are charging one Akori. Emmanuel Kofinti, onuna or your former GRE boss. Only free on na Reverend Amishadai by Reverend Amishadai. So, sir, on so you're charging Isaac Crentel, and a SML boss Nankasa, Anna Kwame. O boss ken no kwadwo damwa so na kwadu ko soja no kwame kwacha danfo pa na kwame we de ye na friend ono so ya charge no And you know, it's not about the charges. So, me say the crack the saying. You see, I'm in, and then you see, it doesn't matter how learned your attorney general is. Look, one of the most learned and experienced, intelligent attorney generals. I'll bet you if you say, hey, Ayene, Dominic Ayene. He's such a very learned man, but sometimes he's like a dassic attitude. No, or yeah, also a watertight. Look, to tell me you have a watertight evidence means and ferment me fast evidence in time. So what are you waiting for, sir? Go to the court and get justice for our country. Go to the court, get justice for our country. Minti, minya lawyer until I'm konso yechi. Yeah, it is a lawyer. No what you have to be attorney general. You gotta act it. I respect whatever you're doing. I understand, sir. It must take process. I must take, say, you must be meticulous. So, but Tobo, no one just certain evidences and send where you all kind of it is that. Charlie, very well. Maybe, or mine, maybe we'll have a different way of seeing things. But maybe that's just the good news to report it. Say, but look, how good is it? Because then, what I say, you have. Charged him for corruption and corruption-related offences. It's not about charging Kenoforiat in here. Yes, if I Kenoforiat break room, that is what we're talking about. What took your partners in America so long to validate, and yet how many power had more? Then you quickly validate. Huh? I just say, Yankasa Cronphobia from America Baha, near hope was a country, 3 hours, then we go and sign extradition order and validation order. And yet, and Crawford, it takes them forever to release. Are we not a sovereign nation? Me? I'm more new than I mean. I can't tell him say you were falling on your partners. I feel our partners now. So what, sir? Some partners, he may be referring to FBI and maybe the criminal. I beg your pardon. CIA full name near there. Central Intelligence Agency of USA. I'm sure, say they may be the partners and some other groupings with intelligence. Huh?
Okay, as in systems now, I'm going to or SML.
There be also the foreign partners.
Yes, also more shoot they retrieve systems and to get the proper analysis. It's easy. So they fall on their foreign partners.
Yes.
Now after the report and the report came to prove to what they were having. That's what he said.
Yes, but we have not contradicted from that position.
You have contradicted. So
how?
So it's not.
I've not contradicted.
Hold on. It's not his partners in terms of extraditory, but his partner in terms of SML issues. No.
So firstly,
the
matter.
Yes, that was what.
No.
I didn't get it that way.
No, that's not.
You can replay.
The matter na
you can play that portion.
Matter na SML.
Yes.
And you see, if he had said that earlier. He said it under the extradition order.
Yes.
So every conversation we are having must be tailored and narrowed towards the extradition order.
Nana, he was very specific.
He was specific.
Yes, you see, my understanding is the foreign partners for extradition partners outside the country
that's what I'm saying.
To be able to bring Ken Fayata to Ghana.
Exactly.
Oh, David.
That's what he meant. That's what he meant. Oh, Asaki, that's what he meant.
Because I read from Chumbofo, what is it Chumbofo, right? I think he said that was yesterday or today. He said it on today's Thursday, right?
But why are you referring to Chungwa?
He said
He himself has.
Make
your life.
Yeah, we are live.
Okay.
No, so let me introduce you. Sorry. Is the name Nichiren?
Yeah, Nichiren Apia Boydi.
So Nichiren Apia Boydi.
Thank you.
Ekasama NDC Ofia Samsona chairman Samson Asaki Awingo, the national chairman, MAP PNC, Importers Exporters Association of Ghana, Mira Samson Country for Penny Divine, Nkrumah, director of Media Relations Center for Justice, Rule of Law, meeting the Nana Utudako. So of course, and come on, but we are by the year no one said na yen cancer. Me mama akwaba officially. But of course. Yeah, any introduction to and community chats. Forgive me, but I feel that the office is wasting everybody's time, and I feel that our taxes are going, into nothing. I feel so.
Thank you. I think it's here for saying and now. Eddie to Janum. If I win good. I think when I was coming, I said, I'm going to Accra100. So my station was on Asampa. So I said, let me switch to Accra.
Okay.
To be switching on to say special prosecutor or is it half year report or what is it?
That be said, Rano Shen said, I think quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah.
So I realized, okay, first and foremost, let me say that the special prosecutor is not serious. My being to me on unity. Tempt. On unity, tempt. Look, me who she? Madam Hamidu buy no. Madam Hamidu can say, or share information now. Minister say man coin. Entena or coin no. And on chron report. And I'm what?
That's right.
And I got tambo buy. Tell me, since or buy no. So do 3 years and I broke up.
Oh, I show. 3 years.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes.
So 3 years.
Obedi.
Or TV for one flyer. Koji. And now Timu Kachira say, me buy no me your recoveries 10 million Ghana cedis or 20 million Ghana cedis. Me who baby Timu Kachira on your record. And now the report now on my recoveries are on here as part of the investigation no or to recover this amount of money for the state. So our property firm asset and property baby our ne act no. Okay. Or to G
asset recovery.
Yeah, asset recovery. Yes. So Obama has he been able to report success?
At that point, he said he saved us some money.
How much? Save and now recovery. Saving is different.
No, yes.
Saving is different. Say right. The crime is about to commit,
and you say
now must stop it. But many of the cases, no, scarayadi we commit crime, you commit we. And me who say special prosecutor that you buy my proper report say me timi discuss say me timi prosecute way to the latter ya we the case court say or dibem onko fi coordinate dey ne ana kunu dey ne ana court say dabi odi for okọ for afiase okọ da afia menu afiase menu ana mensa every a week me who be that ana mbo me bo awon kacha me
ebi ni ho
maybe that's not happening.
Maybe a brofo no baba kacha.
Oh,
brofo dey na de. Brofo kwa na akwa we kasa wo ho. Unzo o kan report o kan say o da manase azore any mami bi o da manase. Me Asake, me here press conference go back on SML.
Yes.
Everywhere okay pa. And I called the special prosecutor to zoom in. And I said they should stop GRS to stop paying him. And because the same thing our claims that we are downstream no. Oko MPA
doing the same thing.
The Rock City BBB.
MPA doing the same job.
They are doing the same system. It's Juma no so no. Omo ye Juma bia. That was the time my Sam give you pay ba say omo ni gold ball omo ni Juma bia ye. Who can pass out? And 3 days later after my press conference no. And special prosecutor akwa osuko kwasuku and no more them arrest here. Okay, pa. After my just go back and check the day I did my press conference. Now, who about that must one damasi? who officers amu ko yes arrest we no who officers ko yes arrest we no amu sa trom letter na we ho metro for letter number every watch na metro from office no mo for letter no send ma me fa tro amu trom letter through amu the director of prosecutor no the first akuru ya me ko ho on me go say ya di Mustafa Ahmed any ne other team na ya see omo ko di PPFU and never scan omo so di wo MPA no kan no eno mu na ba ye ene me ko to public procurement authority new boss no ene na management omo so ba that ya ko tra ha answer on ba friend ko e me ko to big investigators like 8 or so or more than that oba hu see I be able to tell say omo see it for do oba na to no sam here na abaisa ka wo ti sa da ko be break ko da abukukum me ti say le ko ba amisa da ana why omo so ba ye ana omo chi omo ko to what dey say ana oba ya report na wo am me di one time I say
now they didn't hear
na nya me
Chama some no
tell ko ya arrest okwa suit me can you me press conference na ada na omo chi me letter arrest na omo ko ye ana that super no mo ye wo SML mo headquarters ene omo tema office no enye me press conference enye me press conference ada no mo chi me say I was a part of interest for them to talk to me so I should come ada no mo chi me letter
chairman in all this thing
but ma me can say
chairman entiano de fatu wona
papa we no me say on kwa fie me say on timi ya djuma no me say djuma no deputy attorney general can say almost on fa report in a document in Ambra. It is only the attorney general that can trigger go to court and trigger for the extradition. And yet any special prosecutor sir. And then that's not okay.
Say no, what's that time no? You mean you're ready because they were falling on some foreign partners. If you open what say, Cecilia and I ready. It's now I was expecting to yes, okay. Cecilia I'm the docket in the court. And chairman, I'm sorry. Would they look at this and divine Pastor Masaja we mommy. In the first place, was it February and I would declare a fugitive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And put him on a wanted list. 80
who need fact
now person watching until one will say can over at Satam Ghana for pressure, but only the you thought say as one man America crack a hilly. 80 Samimetiasia can over at Yari or Yarintina name for the The same person who say a failure now will fall on some foreign partners say on with some validation. So which is which?
And that is where men of enemy can say Okaze Omoko yes subo SML headquarters no and the office no data no they retrieve no they needed professional or technical what do you call it to analyze the data but report never it coincide with what they were the evidence they were relying on. So it means say when they pick the system from SML no, they've taken it to maybe outside Ghana for system analysis to analyze the data well and also give them their verdict.
That is also
based
possible.
on that one no they've not see that it's synchronized with what they were holding or they were perceiving that this is the corruption.
Good. Talk to the KPMG report.
Yes.
Because the KPMG report no so contradicting.
Yeah, also KPMG report no. He disagree with them. So, yes, I know. Also, he disagree with them. Recommendation where I say he disagree with them, and he was happy that previous the guest outgone Commissioner General no stop Mamino stop paying them. Mamino say Reverend Nkoye no Mamino take over.
Oh, okay, man, Kennedy.
Oh, proceed. Mommy, it was a woman. Yes, it was. I think she should be the first woman to take over GR as Commissioner
for a short while.
Yes, for a short while. Yeah. So she stopped first and foremost. She stopped the downstream. She stopped the downstream. Was it in November or so? Or boarded no. Then stopped paying them in December. SML. So meaning they were paid till December. Now I'm gonna say on to ya. Some I mean no question. Dr. Anthony Bayer. Yeah. So I can tell you quite clearly that Krista Dapa your friend Bakuru Johnson. What is the minister there now?
Cecilia
Dapa. You go cry fresh if I don't remember. Or recall. On Fanco. ah bibia o wa no ho no bibia da kisi ajabe no office ho no just o pe cars papa just he love machines me too obi ho na mo hu da be no say o say da no mo ye international corrupt program no Parliament House and conference center no is cars di kisi ajabe ba no yes machine you from machine ya car machines.
So what is the connection? Car of connection.
Oh no budget no budget no one budget na ye recoma special prosecutor do. So
what are you insinuating?
Pepe sikadi ngwa no modi. Oh. Amon timin butterfly on timin fa mosquito code there reprimand ni pana ana ya jail ni pana ana ya retrieve anything. Hey that be bro from west of taxpayers money.
One but okay Babeli did demonstration. And
against special producer.
Yeah, he must go.
Hashtag
we will lead that demonstration.
Hashtag Kisigabe must go.
Kisi Ejabe
must go.
And almost scrap office no.
I know.
My memory ora appear so.
Yes, sir. Yes. Second time but first day I'm say oko baby. See no one to them. Doc na betin. Doc na betin. Yeah. Me also kana.
Chairman, and you have number one comment and live show.
Your live show.
As a need divine. See the uncle.
Dana medase. Na ma memfa nchi akase ya ma me penyi the Honorable Felix Kwachio Fosu, Minister for Government Communication. Na menchia the MP for Ablekuma Central Constituency, the Honorable Abdul Latif Dan. Na meka say the office of the Special Prosecutor no Ubisamia meka say the foundation for its establishment it was flawed. Na metrim because say you Attorney General and a Minister of Justice. Now you were other investigative bodies like the police CID or more prosecutors. You were Iyoko office. Yes, also was Shraj. Any other agencies, one case was Nana BNI, former BNI, and now NIB. All these are agencies are almost investigation. Some face challenges are almost too many AG collaborate to be able to prosecute people like this say almost the abandoned and I say almost for abandoned properties. And to me no, Ubisamia, the setting up of the OSP office no, now an agenda by Danado to be able to go after NDC party officials. Now again say NDC for this car. And to no setting up office via will target them. And to be sure, me did say at a point in time, now Martin Amidu, he was a disgruntled member of the NDC. At a point. And Nanadu will say, Semi Fasa Nimpoya, Obeko against the NDC members, Obe arrest them, he will prosecute them. Then you in some CC, Yera Martin, or resigning as first special prosecutor. I had the mark Kisi Ejabin. And to me did say a Juma Yafa AG Yafa the deputy or a whole lot of office logistics personnel. He can do the work because you see Nana, why would we create a different office? No investigation a na AG akoje na that person will prosecuted. You see there were a lot of developmental problems in Ghana. Mini asake can who share the logistics for the OSP officer. Me did say you bet to me they strengthen the AG office. Say who they say or lack some kind of logistics via own to main prosecutor. Why don't we strengthen that office rather than to go and create a different office? And for me, you know, Ubisami the character of Kisi Jabian, me who they say or a very crafty person. Because yes, okay, binana, ejumeni there are people who work in his office. I agree with you perfectly. Say the office of the OSP must be collapsed immediately without delay. As I say, menfa only 3 issues are what touch on. Yenfa, for example, is the part issues. No, yenfa Christmas tree issue. Yera adomochri edano. Yenfa yera Ken issues we. The only thing we see is he comes out and blow hot air obey press conference yɛbɛkyi nipa sei yɛbɛkyi wei but in the end wobɛhu sɛ ɔba out forcefully a na the issues now calms down na akɔyɛ sɛ ɔhyɛ aseɛ but wɔnwie meaning sɛ yɛ create office sei ne yɛsɛ o prosecute a what Ghanaians want to see they say what prosecute obi wɔwie sika yɛagye sika no yɛntumi angye mpo a yɛagyeli saa nipa no na obi a ɔwɔ saa intention to steal no wɔsuro but almost all the cases are out high profile cases no sɛ yɛkyi nipa no wie na onya bail a na nipa no nam hɔ free so for example Paul Adomochi case yi say akwasi sɛn that is a question o ne kɔtena office for so many hours
na Paul deɛ yɛn cases so say yɛn nyinaa yɛ TV
yes
so say nananom bi frɛ now if indeed it is the point how do you create or have such an independent or so-called body now influence no
Nana that office
on the 100,000 Akoto Christmas tree
thank you
so or him be afraid
even if which I don't agree if you are maintaining this particular officer Kisie Jabin to me he lacks the intelligence to be able to handle that particular office me see a press conference you know can send me who say
intelligence he may have but what should that
thank you when they say he is only majoring in the minors you see before he ended the press conference or Kasembi say onim Dr. Ayini na down for pa or try na there time na Ayini is sitting down Accra for the first time no or a foreman and all these things are unnecessary we don't need that no. Akaki, we don't need that
no in communication and those lawyers they put it under the bracket of critical thinking and practical reasoning.
Thank you.
It is called appeal to pity. Appeal to pity. You think say
yes.
He's rallying the emotions of the masses.
Nana, appealing to pity is completely it's a fallacy.
It's fallacy.
People like you and myself, we can read in between the lines.
How many can?
That's why we are doing the advocacy here because here, someone doing Kayini. Will say I can see myself in him. He can't see himself in me. All those things are frivolous issues. And now what I will say is we are appealing to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The office of the OSP, no, it has outlived its purpose.
I'm not sure, sir, I don't know what the act says.
You see, it will go through. Those who are in the legal realm will educate us. It will go through a process. Nobody in office is absolute. Regardless of security of tenure, no, you can be removed through a process.
Yes.
And what I was saying is the reasons for we bringing Kisie Jabin as OSP, no, I think he has not lived to expectation. And it's about time I will say to me who say if you're then about to be able to prosecute people to retrieve monies for the country on to me yes he has no business.
I know the budget every year the budget the budget goes and they spend it.
He said he spends the
yes so you should give a result.
So Kisie Jabin
is proven by the Auditor General report that but since some of these things if we cannot prove it
no I'm saying that the budget that we give to special prosecutor office of the special prosecutor I don't know you
so what is charging the base of
the output
yes so if you spend the money you must give us result.
Okay, we can say that sikana edemano no e o say hu esom faso
san meka
say hu esom faso there na it is as good as waste
and e crack utwi na ma
and me say
yes sir obenya lawsuit
budget na call the office no
yes
they are spending it.
You see
if you pay them they must work for us.
Thank you na make say
that's what I'm trying to say
me aban in the party NDC you say you the oral ba now all the loot amanfo wiewia no we want to recover the OSP office office bia anka say ebo adwuma operation recover all loot no be adwuma yie but this particular point in time no you who say OSP office no sabe emwa tell me you say kikan no minister more through budgetary allocation you output bia into our appeal to our party hierarchy to His Excellency say Sisia de OSP office no it has become like a white elephant a minister but the results is not being seen until I believe say in the coming days the government should be able to review the work of the OSP na you say sika ekomu no and correspond with output ayenya our appeal to the president yen collapse office no with immediate effect
anything I hear parliamentary approval, you have 2/3.
Yes, absolutely.
You have 2/3. So if it's anything that must go through parliament, because PPA a year okay. Not just say SML for no crampo no. Sir, contract no year apart from say so source no. And call parliament for approval. It was without parliamentary approval. So if you have established all these things, sir,
assemble one OSP so can ya me gidi say a money argument we na flawed ne say who started to bring Ken Japan Furata down. Now nya fact na nwie enti nya fact na nwie ya den ti na be pre ho say on free abrochi embra Ghana. And at this point in time no I can say he's only buying time and or the adwin e di agro. And our appeal once again say anything it takes for us to go through the process legally to remove OSP Kisej Abine there. There was a to be here immediately.
I'll still come back to you live. Accra100.5 FM Citizen Shows. Yeah, we'll wait to me joining. My who's a messages be brother making can be surely or separate place here or say I don't need animals without sense. Hey, no, be any, I don't know. And the one else, also know too, you know, your president is a lesson one. Wait for an action. Okay, but like we said, we are here to educate. Until we are not president current mean, you know, and until that make kind of tenor of office, name security of office. If you are not to say a Supreme Court judge there, then I'm sure it will go through a certain process. Okay, Comfort Jagbly, Nana, good evening, please. How far with the MP of Bonkatamanso? Okay, so no sooner message. Also, the OSP was established by Akufo-Addo to go after former NDC appointees and not to fight corruption because the NPP government itself was corrupt very well. Ben Boafo was not this guy. It's making sense very well. Paul, I mean, so just NDC is better than NPP. Francis Oseya, Akufo-Addo said he will protect the public press, but failed to do so. Mami Owusua, the OSP must be closed down. It's a waste of our taxpayers' money. The president must act now. Mami can 3 and come home. Now you need come more. Okay, I've done this already. Let's do this. Yakini Kadiri. Or see, OSP is not on top of issues. He should be sacked immediately after he came live with nothing. It's a long message that Mami thinks so because of time. And finally, let me do this. Wafaki says good afternoon. Aku Kuda also too. I don't blame them. I blame the man that we have. Don't. Very well. So near ono so can no Mami ko divine in Chroma. Ono and same way follow pa na ono so yenti na num sen. Minia
Nana
we the wani madija.
Mchia o
Mejo sunura.
Mchia tie fon so
Wonders.
Ana mchia mpanyifon so ya hia wa hase.
So
asamro de omo aka nyina ntina na otu awdum se de me be ka hompo de kakra bi
So the obetu justice ya.
na oni bibi
Aje chire.
before ameba OSP
Okay.
meba attorney general
Great.
corruption and corruption related issues ni nyina ye ka wasam. Let's discuss the main person in question, Ayeke Nofuriata,
Fantastic.
and also link it to the AG's press conferences away in the past in recent times. Na me eya na say me tibro foot and time bi a me tikasa bi a me bufu me hu ni say nyansa bia ni sa kasa ni mu according to me. And he say yes, see the person is innocent
Until
proven guilty. And almost say yen kase alleged.
Yes.
For me can be bia alleged bia. I will call them thieves until say court no ebeba be catch them say otherwise no onkofo no omo nyesa. But until then, once a press conference is na AG no omo frustrate ejuma na oye no because it is making the party one unpopular. And then me tell my MPP communicators ni bi omo say ama grassroots for no venture manga no executives for hey say na sika we nyina individuals na mo wo sika no hwem koto kom ana man fan bua grassroots for no into omo pese age enjai ka but you see effort age ni shemu a all share the light on the corruption, the thievery and all those things, it is good. Me that for the first time I many fear me politics I made this is the first time I made to say yes say ebia abayaba or my breakdown ejiba or my breakdown of case tie eji no ye waka o ye na ya ma na adwuma so onye e no no be my report say musi me nye say me be ko but say ni say information e na me kita me de ko e no nkyere say obu obi for answer no de akodu court e breakdown of the my court ne ko kire wa semu that's right. And no to omo ye trick bi person omo nkyere say oh nipa no on fa de ne ye onim ho hwe enti innocent until proven guilty. Share me no kasa say let's put the whole discussion in perspective. Ya dia yira anayira he. Ya dia ayira anayira he. Say ya dia ayira ne ehu na ye nyina ye gitum sa ayira. Why na e hye ne sa ya dia no ayira he. No to imagine say yes see ye the studio we ahye wonsa microphones wanim monitor set eni na manyina na ewie show no a unu producer mo pie no the next person be host show be about microphone ni ho
first point here
that's all
first point
monitor ni ho na ho I mean one we all say me and kase ye wo kopim time a ebia ye behu me one no so na ofi ha it say wo be kire say eni because you see there's something we call ultimate responsibility ye di jawa ne di asoa o it is say di beja nko an se hwemu a ayira ye ko bi so bi foforo it omo person mo play trick bi say ade na to proving guilty yes national service ghost eba hono o se me en kase ghost me one no audit report no kire and it's the same trick they played with us Pius Ajide. You remember Pius Ajide trick now we play Australian visa scandal.
Yeah.
Yes, setting up CID committees here investigation. Yeah, exonerate. Pius Ajide. Yes, you Yenjano. Yes, you Anyashi. Meanwhile, for the fact and for the record, so not more than 60 journalists had been deported. Yes, it's almost no copy. And when you listen to them, almost say, Pius Ajide na arraignment charge you no do call. Imagine. When him say ya asam no wosre ye ne basa 2024 Ajide campaign e woni krom e no no abeka say walk up pesan so aba ade no ye Australia no ntoma me mesan so ye bio aga na mo see ye forget say ye see wo di bone ye see buffer stock sika ayira ye hu Musimi and Kase, why that on the Kangasa wine? Me the Macas where we are copim time or better is okay, Pacho, maybe director and manfa, ben operations Becca Sanyami, district manager, near Tracy, the Usa Paya Castle, but to me can't say Boniasi, you two say, by a person pointed fingers. Me when you're in a deep bonino. The same applies to as someone may Becca see with Kenufuriata issue. Share, unim. Me, I'll come to OSP. My best can ask him, but can no for yata no. Mummy address no send you to send you fata. Start to say I can't can no fata some. Also, Brofia Mikai. Oh man can say he is not guilty until proven guilty. That's right. And almost see Njano can no fata nya she bibi o ye biano or ye lawfully or na mombra kwan so. Share second no for yata animuti and na why papa. Adan na ya to abawie ye. As a former finance minister, you hand over your nyashi. Babam, eno jane ye. Then no ye tino nim the eba on person beba. I don't know si ebisa no. Se si anu se ye ntokwa ni nyina no. Ye OSP, AG, OSP, OG. En ye jani pa na. Onu na mo no because the party for ne send ho kroje onye boni bia. Meanwhile the man is running. Hwe. Onto ye tia se si e. Na mi fi down honum se si a. Na me ba show ya na obi say me be ra studio no obi adam ni ka ba studio ha say ma snatching the phone and am there be ra studio ha say and I go for police for ba ya o ma fa anko fa ngum nsa mo say wo ye show into the your show no uwia ye hia wo police station be kire mu say o na fire na say wo fire me am gi tu mu say me fire na me wie na me tu me car na me coffee after 2 days ye bisa me say na phone na say no o mba e be ka say wan na wia anya ye mi na be kase me
da bia no ama police station
wi ya bre iti kene for yata say on fire she on mokro no bia adan no making himself available na ye question no na nipa ne dwane me no ka say first one oba e o se ne hwe ne ya omukwa surgery the surgery time no ye kasa ombra ye mbonu mbra na na ne rebe issue statement say by June kota de the doctor said ni clear no June aba betwa mo hwe July August September October more than 5 months aye koi obian ka hwe say meanwhile this guy is pretending say o yarefo hwe o 2 flights no aba Liberia no abesha the business partners the business partners be feel Liberia no ma sha no Washington no aba UK and no go up and down to and fro ni eti ye nja no no nam honum ni OSP mekasa we must address his thief. If he's not a thief he should come kronfuo or ya kronfuo me I have no sympathy for that man because and the SMA report here kan imagine so who say we Ghana ni also do Ghana pa Obama sasem we abefo afichire say no value for money now we share chire that's a scout man Ghana actually more than 2 billion now President John Dramani Mahama na say ya okọ Japan contract your sign ya o me brace every year 100 million your kubunku to dwe eskaben me wa na sumasi nipa ba kopɛ DC test kan nyina o Ghana hase eti you know me say momu ya na kanu frata momu na look to say or special being bi na asem ne ye kan yie
o ba be disika koyo
onyo bia be ye say adaje won ho say OSP yam onu enoke heads not abrochire chele the reason why he's behaving like that is that he's buying time for himself. See, all of them are buying time because omu nim kwan omu nam so say and say I come few bia omu exist so they will because you nim the point is that obi anu onu mo a obetimi akwakobo saman charges saman yembo the charges so that's how they are preparing themselves say
no obi say me say anti passport no we did 2 kwan can't we revoke from here.
No, you see, until it has expired. Na court so na be masa order.
Na court ni ekwe.
Oh, how? No, mama na me na no, let me tell you.
Oh, yes, citizen wa yo.
Citizenship ni ama. They will even travel. No, as citizens of America. Guyana na you know makoko je omo citizenship ni ama. They can decide not to travel. And you see when you even do that, it's like what money pan whole coin say. What ostracizing. What would I pam no can say on back. Yeah, man, the same man is free way no can say yeah see member Ghana beauty. No, cause he keep political asylum. Yeah, Jessica because yes I know be seek political asylum. And the US 4% charges no imagine so and the extradite no and that's some the number.
No, na President Mama ka say gift aware ene asibe issues no President Mama no ka say
intervention
that is instructed you could say they should put their tabo and so more properties that can operate on bar ne jampa dia wa ni Ghana example
properties and businesses
me the tabo to do the property data
enterprise insurance.
No, you see, let me tell you, it's not that simple. You are simplifying the issue. See, when it comes to company regulation management, you can't personalize it. A different entity, you separate it from the individual. So you see, the point is that so OSP no crap post speech no my or make an aligning statement be say time you to abewie no within that short period of 50 short no obuye some schemes been administrating niama siesie niama iti obomu ni obuye yo na kebeba ni say na data bank e wa ha ekenu furata dia enterprise o ko hwehwe ni owners na na o trace ya foreigners
no our shares
on shares so we tell say onya owner no
o dissolute
of the shares no floaty and onu ani na mfu abeto no mo de ko property na wa no o checking records not property ni ye fa ni say ni ready mu a e won bedi mu fa sidi mu a o be si da akwaji say
you can still interrogate.
No, you can interrogate
Oje Hanan dia or say na o ma Nigeria 5,000 cedis a month and yet on besides how could you acquire 1.6 million dollars if he
No, that one is so direct. It's so direct. I said I know to me is here. If I say me procure a 2-bedroom bi e dey amount and in future no you be find it out at the time that ownership no you don't know the arrangement maybe they pay for that thing. Do you get it? And there are a lot of arrangements omo ye the cleaning musica. Let me go on. See, OSP one, me have said it without number say OSP office no, it was needless in the first place to set it up. See, even we are still struggling with the mandates of the AG and the Minister of Justice.
Yeah.
We are saying at this point, we should decouple the two. We should separate the office of Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. Now, Attorney General, no, you're public prosecutor, and then the Minister of Justice, no, on defending on by.
That's all. That's all.
Yeah, can't come away. And look, what about setting office way at the Ababi Siono? Me bisa who watches the watchman? Okay, say OSP Eddie kind by a press conference beer or declare a fugitive no.
Any February.
Oba no beki kan nsem ta. Yes, so ye wa so ye wona ye te. Ye bisa say OSP obi ni di nkomo. Ono another for one for description na o ma say na dan for ni Dr. Ini e no say no. It's the same relationship ade no no ye e no be friend no phone so hello minia unim say case we dey mini pano no pacho we dey obetumi a withdraw. It starts the same way no withdraw the first one. Nipa no friend ni anim. Nipa no friend no.
Are you serious?
Oh. As Mashada metimi abodin microphone see they are making na for some no mo say obey the case no me ba it is the same me from because one say economic circumstances look at such an important matter on board I hear discussing about corruption no na first I be discussing personal relationships. Na me want to very say otu me no chance see hwe ma me nka bibia o ye madam for pa but so ko di sebi nkwasa sam bi o ba bi na o di bone basa na etufo no wanti a me to be associate me won say na minimum dada o there be AC but me person me chiro say want to me ba sa asem we o no no ye kase ye hia kronfo ye fa ne bra o say madam fu nie e na o ye mi say e no kra me na me to ne block so ma no me kra ne fie for kra me ko di fufu o ho no ye pesa account no dey hiding
The former.
Yeah, the former.
Waste of taxpayers.
The former. Yeah.
Waste of taxpayers.
Because uchi wo na I
They are wasting public.
And you know, the office of the prosecutor, no more questions be answers be some of them. Also, some ready places. Amukoko normal koko ransaki yakwachi way. Up to today, all the press conferences, value of money, assets that they have retrieved, almost to be published. And because Abu call Siladapa, journalists want to and they will tell you, almost says Sikakosaniama. I don't value the environment to that. Abu call is legend, Abu call operation now. I don't know my breakdown of what they found. What Amubano about the blue hair, hot air. The following day, no, be fafu fro. Don't get what is on the sun? I do. Etimi. Yamfa OSP asem to nchen mu na mo ma no sa highlight because game no obo because game no obo no onim it oya no be press conference o be ankonam oya ankonam ni wie pe no abegina onum na case no hwe kana frata case ya start ye onu ye prime suspect o matter in 50 February ye nya results bia year we end say more 25 years I mean go 26 ube one say next year obe drag I mean one unim hanan mu ne gi chaware mu ne ayi nyina krono akoso nyina no esanso for this same kanofuriata up to today banking sector cleanup exercise unim say all the time omaye baako mienu miensa they still have not been able to come to terms the real value sika they're spending here
exactly.
Because every time be figure all these things have happened under this same person. Or no a prime suspect, no. On namo move from yes, say your boss say bekumo suno. Now people who could inkusi echi we time ni be sunu to me nya adwuma no. Enti say kusi na mudi di echi na fine. But suno all the crane na me dey ye pen no. Boko va kenofurata no. Mo make sure so beba. And I see there are a lot of discussions. So I want some of your family and friends. You catch a President John Dramani Mahama sending appointees. Any conform more they want to pretend say, we have a classmate. Me in the hall. I will go. Me in the co school. Wait.
50 one more.
No, that's what they are trying to do. See, there are some many issues. Oma reduce no to chronism, friendship, and then omo person me say we minimum dada.
Yeah.
Na kasha obi ono against President John Dramani Mahama. Wa vote tia na aka no asem bone sa. One of the CEOs, waka koto sa guy no ho no a political person brought him because of politics. Now who so janipa no because of your mate. Doesn't make sense. Who see what Janipa no adwuma mu ho because we dey fi no o grassroots for a comedy omo ye dede omo nya hwenye na wo acha sa nipa fanatics no dey ato ho no. So what I'm trying to say is among be ye enamfosem ye classmate ye busuafo we dey otoduane bi ma menra anase minim no. We see if this government fails to execute and prosecute the oral agenda. You people should not reduce the discussion to elections. It goes beyond that. The anger level will not arise. If they don't manage it well. Any elections are democracy na kasa ya person no ebe crashing because after all why what's the point in changing government? You change now we have a change. You invite people there will be anarchy. And me I enjoy Ghana. Manage Ghana who me person me come bia. They should do the right thing.
The reason why Nana Akufo-Addo is president yenye coup d'etat is because the soldiers saw in Mahama an alternative.
That's true.
Mahama intina coup in Ghana wallahi. Because who is CC
around Ghana,
yes. It wasn't different from that. What?
Especially what the same.
Inflation as far as 54.
Let me count radio to say. It's good to man yesu jeni come to Akufo-Addo. I said it already. Me am here civilian.
I know what you're saying.
Oh, my account. I said it. I mean, publicly. My account. Send me to Akufo-Addo bind them to soldiers for no na Uncle Akufo-Addo I forget. Mahama no mu in as alternative. It's in your divine canon. But my friend Yagro. Yamaka say if we fail, na yantia kromfo yantum, we are just inviting me.
That maybe say kisi jabe say okofie. At the end of the month or withdraw salary. For good 3 years or withdraw salary. Your man fuel. Your man police any soldier for the escort. Your father say yeah dey my. So Bojuma. That you want to Ejuma.
Why are you taking salary?
I saw coffee. He should resign. He has failed. He's a failure. The guy is a failure. Complete failure.
Asamba kwa divine kan ya.
Meto old one was he?
I said million mama cat me.
Asamba kwa divine kan ya. Me ya gen 2000%. They say democracy I want to see ano. You share even the voting margin between NDC and the MPP in 2024 elections now. Actually, I don't know. Nimpa P who say the MPP are buying a riska air phone properties. No, I will say to try. Near to me a cheer man for Moyasa. Intimidate so as some secretary Kanye, Fifi Kwete Kanye, about the fact a man for free. A person of cat deals were bunting. Now man for go scot free. To more US Canada. Say koso sa wo se hwe ni ejai. Esan say the moment the hope and the confidence are Ghana fo nya omutu aboma no. Say ko from pe na wakabi democracy will be nowhere to be found. Esan say sikedie any sikewia no ekoso yie pa. Na Kenoforiata one of the biggest fish in the pool. Yentumi ama na ma yan charge no. Na sika sebi afa nsase no yan recover ebe ha adwinye pa eninti na yaka se OSP office ni dia me hunu se fie na koya me party we must initiate process to collapse a particular office na yan hwe se yan resource the already established and existing investigative bodies no say enka men ko se ye de kenten akonsuo na ye hwe se no results. Now your resources that office no or call round in circles. You won't results be a behaving. Until the NDC continues stay in power no. It is coterminous to the fact that you bet me execute the oral near Kayano. yɛntumi anyɛ na yɛayɛ nkurɔfoɔ ɛkate deals na corruption ɛkɔ so a that is the beginning of the end of the NDC and democracy in general.
Very well. When you say at the end of the day, rules na mo yɛ through big push. But they are gonna phone card. At the end of the day, ebi kra yɛn kan hospitals ahodoɔ mo si. At the end of the day,
yes.
Yɛn kan how a city $1. But at the end of the day, you bet kai akromfo here. Mochi wo mtum. Madness.
Nana.
Because Ghanaians are hungry.
Yes.
See better akromfo tum than the economy.
Yes.
Mahama can do everything with the economy. But
don't get chill. Chini has a feed 5 cities a day.
Huh?
Not get chill. Yeah, they will retrieve the money before they jail you.
Nana, what can say na? As say even before John Dramani Mahama His Excellency will take office no, you set up Aura. Internet say Aura no, they are here Ghana for year pa. Enti we cannot disappoint Ghanaians. As say, okay, we see hospitals, we see schools, we hear coin. Na so na your taxi tuano. Among for the monsa bume this kana. What is the essence of all this infrastructure?
But you say Kisi Jamaica say Atonjala ayane new pa or ndamfo or
more of the papa also
yes.
Until you know they like press briefing. Atonjala suka so also your press conference that he even killed the person before he take it to court.
No, office of the special position I think that he's enjoined by the law. Say I think quarterly and an appreciable
quarterly.
State.
Yeah, so
Atonya then they say a government program, governance accountability series.
Honorable,
No, they be here.
You should change the narrative.
We divine kind. We have employed the government, and day in day out, they must brief the people. It got to a point. I'm for see our prosecutions. No. Never was about the say
because he hasn't won any case yet.
No, it's a process. You see, the legal system.
10 months.
It's very
10 months is
it's a
10 months is enough. Or who be 10 months is enough.
Or the court, no. The court must be allowed to function.
Well, Chairman, in as much as I agree with you, sir, attending court now. I also I disagree with you. First, no, I held that position, but I have changed that position. Say, Martin General, my inconsistent report because I'm here. Ghana frontier say Bonia and Crofon.
Yes.
So we must understand. And was it divine? And who was saying, I know. MP before crowd boys, no, and the guys
yes.
Okay,
it's I don't know more. We updated Ghanaians. If that's the case, first question you ho.
Sorry, an office.
That is the office. That's the office. Communications office.
Our successor.
Who coordinates? No. The best person to do it is the AG himself. Yes, as the AG himself, only the prosecution.
Say all the brief that Attorney General, you know. So on winning cases and these people go to court and won now. What do you think they'll do?
See, Odia, as some no crowd send yet no yepe. Unim chairman, unim data information we yepe no. Who's a President John Dramani Mahama by? Just some few months bia around March was on Kaya. Food suppliers for Kopekete ewo Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
Okay, that's
quite demonstration. Not that time, just this year. This year, see in
Chiomuka.
School feeding any suppliers for no. Meanwhile, that's Okabrane, Odia Fanese, Hanan first Sky. Scandal meant for the suppliers, no. You, it was a car.
And me see.
See, Odia here, so at least. Ghanaians must know, sir. Something happened. We must know.
Kasa na dia obi court prison no.
But any prison kwa accountability. See, when you shed light, when you shed light on corruption, it's also a form of deterrent.
One at a time.
We were in this country when former Attorney General, or the member of Parliament court dabia even started the person from court. Say ukaipa. Until sa expose Attorney General. Don't you think say we should the case should be calling every day to speed up the case.
I agree with
that's
you.
what I'm thinking.
And that is why in some of the cases the president through the Attorney General and the Chief Justice have established and they are going to establish
I know your auditors report
fast track court in any case fast track high court and all those ones. we agree with you. Say Attorney General should go to court
every day.
Cases.
Court every day.
Also agree with our position. Say Attorney General be briefing here. And these same people in the coming election because so many anybody.
Yes.
So we need to be brief.
Yeah, brief. Dubai senior no. They are here. Akufo-Addo, Minister of State, Finance Minister of State at the finance, right? And so
minister.
And so
minister.
Yes, so there. Mobile brief here up to date. They are taking Dubai junior issues the case by. You brief here. They are too hute. Where's Hanan so there ba. You brief here. Yeah,
Chama. Ma yanka say anti hute. Process na ekoso. Wa kire de all year or court. You see, nana otu kan bi o. Ema ye hu corruption course in the previous government. Nti eba na sa ube hu say sika omo fa enie, omo di enie. But ya sha see a ye prosecute omo. Me no ya adwen say yes, some Ghanaians are not patient and I agree with them. Because ye ka say amanfo wie sika. Amanfo disika or the atodan will recover all those loot now. Or person who results. But I was saying who say yes, me cut down basic separation of powers. Ya investigation ewie. Yent me nchini ntumu sa. I was say the court. Na court na fa process na so. The only thing we can encourage is say we can also appeal to the court say assembly bar they should expedite action.
Even President Mahama appealed.
Thank you.
High Court judge. That's what I'm saying. That need less adjournment.
Yes.
That is an interest.
Thank you.
If you remember.
And I think say yes, your concerns are valid. I agree with you perfectly. Esan say results in the bar and the pay. Yes, your comedy ani o me. Yes, what mean say nipa no we are the ampa. You are prosecuting no. We have taken over his properties. We are selling. The state is getting results from it. And the pay. But since I adopted democracy, then a divine can ye. No matter how annoying the whole thing is innocent until proven guilty. No, that's what the law says. We have not changed it.
I'll come back to your appeal. But divine, Osha send him away, you know, with an honest spectacle. Do you honestly believe that this government will win this war of Operation Recover All?
You're on the way to win.
Based on NEMA, AC, Ukikambum, Office of the OSP, Attorney General, Juma, Omo Yene, vis-a-vis the plea bargainer, Nana Akufo-Addo Institute here, you know, I'm against it, and yet, Attorney General Krakai, you just need to have 70% of the money, and I mean, who's your assessment as a country of the year?
You know, what's important right now, and say, once a baby, a sraba for foreign me bomb and PC, Robert Conabon Samon so to Tony Kobe. So you should understand, say, the people always play tricks. So, and it's straightforward, sir, because imagine, say, Obi to say gift your worry, you bear no press conference in March. April Munos or start call police hospital, yes, sir, Naji Mukano. Or no say Naji psychological problem near ye. The BI invited no.
After the MC,
invited no.
First can offer to do. That's a SM now. This is
invited no for every investigative by EBR or so on Tiapo.
Or was psychiatric.
August do ya, Mammy Adjumon Canibu. I got contest GFA second vice elections where we need. Or we need a Panajuma Sasa Canibio. Yashan or Kota Yano. And so who tricks or more and you see how the minority is trying to also frustrate the case in because of Jai press conference. See, I'm engaging a lot of journalists, especially person just and that trick, you know, the NDC people almost fell for the trick. Say, you know, Casado the press conference in the who here. Because that position, you know, it's your game, sir. Amunye di no munko behind the scenes, enko dealing, enko cutting deals. Eti no kasa ne de ehia yen kasa o medi ntro ana ofa asem meto obi so but say the facts in it no a o ma uncover no almost stating no just as it is on sa SML utie OSP report here o say findings are KPMG de ba out no kra na ese omo kra no o ma show chenye no no na ese o ma fa ensam ni nyina amba metu in terms of value for money. Now one of their senior most people no na ese appointing no GRO KPMG for omo bosses for the back no and ya fan no partner. So you ask yourself, say, information ben na nyina until you see some of the things one more. That's why me de say abaya sesa. Me the excitement that me holdi abaya sesa is good. Good in say changes ye change ya. Aye change ya kasa come we bedi. Time amuya nkabete. Time amuya you break your mother, you break your father, break the age, break onye, break your channel. Sana masata mu nyina no.
Break your chepa.
That time what do you think said what do you think was the agenda?
Break the check.
Cover up.
The agenda was to cover up and then continue to create and loot and steal from the people. Akronfo. It be the side okay. We are just hoping say abayin we ebe make sure say saketa hihye ne proye no omo be deal with the issue send it no head on say see and you see me tete say mebre be yin nyina ha ekwan ho sa de na bi mu pese omo fa akire ni aba wo dan mu ni aba wo fie na omo invite for party na mo no mo nsa mo didi ukono kori preko wakokori beef wakori na say wo didi wo ato awu ko di dia no mo ref mo say Ghana fo amom adwuma wo
no asapa na aka no
let me say Emma refie itu be kono no mo ye party the same people no mo wi aye na aye se mo koche mo mre no mo ni mo ye party na mo ni mo chibom and you know some of the people no otoa osi we me former classmate unbelievable in a vision unbelievable in it no agya no ho na we afa ha na akakohia we me the president John Ramani mama na so man nan odisi form so the be ya nkrofo engu nanimu ase yes. Now imagine look at the expose Metro Mass papa ibe. Imagine say Metro Mass ay auction more than 300 buses. They turn as low as 2,700 Ghana cedis. Metro Mass. Sir, 2,000 they are the boy deal we cry 6,000.
Hey, it will be 2,500.
Solo usu say and they are walking on the street.
We mu nyina akoso. Woni bi so mo ton we no mo make 2.something million. Obobeko as at February everybody na no more oppose o omo to one more scanners obokoja account no empty
and they are working on the street
and no be 40,000
and
now 2.20 billion they 40,000 we have 40,000 out there
and we confirm two tuber of yam and that jelu and I confirm they for course district circuit court near Timijelo 10 years
I'm still divine connected to that place.
Really I want to number you. And they call them, I get the money.
It's no, no, to me, the President John Dramani Mahama, the Adenekika Kono. Miminka by no be, Mimwechire. And I'm praying, say, Jumedie be a sin and so no, Enko ye, Enko seni, Tesseni, Sene Fata. Because at the end of the day, if he feels, I'm scared of what it's so and so. I'm scared. Mimiam, Misro. Because
Usro for the country.
I fear for the country. And you know, say, when Nana Domuni MPP mo buy no, Omusuba mbi omuda na dininti no, adia me for the first time in my life Odo Google abehu me I brought to the embassy say obi and sponsor me out of the country my bre me person me fi Ghana because of Nana do abai we
American embassy.
Yeah, me trust to all the embassies. Because them a bread or money and a patriotism. Omusuba ni patriotism she because I'm say activity na cause na me make say a more psychological ethical and we must work on the minds of people because they have seen how the MPP people behaved. Left, right, center. We are the pointer. It is the change, you know. Change now. Abano na man kofo say. As I say, be shape the mindset and the thinking of the people. And the thinking and the shaping, you know, is part of this measures are binding to create that fear. Say, or by Sikano, at the said Okono. So Osaka, Yadamawa, Yankikan yo. Obehono said Okono, na mashki ice kinky. Would dear woman say a better friend, because so don't say, Yakan in I check, Jacken in I channel, so pay. But the ice kinky no yade Yadokuno, now carrier, Jacken no be and be do qua. So, says, see this half fear no a shiny pemu, or man or my sick dieno.
It's in a for the man on there.
na na kufa na wo scan me
on do many
na hwe mami gas ni kire o madam for bi fi Congo and Uganda mo buy last over the weekend no wouldn't say one of the guys at baby and no man news or no person interested they want to hear happenings in America so and na omo scan bi and also mean converting to dollars wouldn't say otis can say it's the public we say ya like all the year day and one of the guys suggested to me say you know the African politician and the leader can still help the people solve their problems and still enjoy the kind of lifestyle na be na woje enye uma enye ovie enye be abeda vacation chilling na ya tie kra obenyi bedu ba bi na wa wi asika sa na ya chi milk ya chi sugar ya chi dokoro dem be chi dos ro ultimi fro ekinu se na nipa wi asika ye di mi de bu gift your worry who to onum sika ya wojio look at the salary it's not small salary o na wajuma ben wa ya wo anye sika we salary de ma wo wasa so dudin akwa shemu as a service personnel who we ya ukun anya scholarship pa ya sanso se wo na wo woni ne dan paso entino esa obenya emotional yi wo se che allowance se ukun anya scholarship sika bia mu di na yete ha hwe sika okako bagi munya sika even sika munya we achi ni na wo na mo hanan mu makako bagi expired rice
sand no kwa sorry
expired rice so e dey koma mo re bagi free SHS na mo dey man crofo na e defend na crofo e ma ye se aduane ni nyam se mo shut up na mo threaten headmasters itime de
abayans sapa antinka Ghana hafa
who be sami sanka abayan
I'm just thinking sanka emba MPP say we need
na no to me abayan we buy from January the be seen there me nya 1 cedi she sisa o mabrabom but if I tell you the comfort I have and the hope I'm a worker Ghana mu you have no idea
one cedi beba
oh
yeah Juma Ghana president it one cedi
obamutie obaja people boys no all mo and you down street no mu na ye nya hwe nyo
one cedi beba
yo bate
chawa
maza
oba divine Bajuma people like divine Chema Wingobit no because you're here Solo these are people who directly end this.
Yeah.
But one some a certain focus.
That's true.
So people like this, see a building national. They deserve.
They are all included. Yeah.
That goes schools are.
Me, I'm not talking like I'm telling you. Tell me. Yeah, go.
What's the next topic? What's the next topic?
In fact, this is one step.
Okay, this is our next topic. They can say, Mahu, Nanotu.
Some comfortable.
Mahu, sa video na. Asoye na. Ebawuro, Makam pharmacy. Na soye ni no, ni owayire de. Owayire. Owa badaye. Owarida.
Okay, ma yenhwe video no.
I
but of so je no video eto sumai.
Sen odika bo oba no.
Onye ni
sa ko ba no sa baba bo oba no.
That is oba no ye soldier ni
penny ba.
Ex
soldier. 2-star general.
Eno osa ko back to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Obone ye no ko hwi. The show body up osa ko no.
Oya ko do ahina su.
At the end of the day no. I didn't know. Do you know why I saw? Or this scanner to my boy now and there. Now, boy, I fight a drone man or not, Okoye. I don't mean before to that extent. I thought say your former discipline. So you know, I knew Guatini papa. Hey, Mr. Bob Obano. China, you worry. I don't know if Divan, you are married, isn't it? We are bachelor. No, I've married since 2002.
You are doing well.
Yes, I've been married for over 22 years now, or 23 years now. My first one is 23. It's going to 23 years.
Married to your wife alone?
Why does it? I'm going to pay 1 million. But over 22 years now. Or 23 years now. I'm married to one woman. Anyway, that's what you want to hear. What do you say?
Your wife is listening.
I also see so they say on himself because I say better one anytime. That one day. And yes, we need to better one comes to Oh, that one, my wife knows I met your one. My wife can.
Man, let's come back.
Today,
let's come back home.
But they tell say, so you know, they're yen bad.
Okay,
so
no, me pass son. So, me pass son number.
What's up? Where?
No, you don't beat people up like that. What that? What man? Hey, yeah, no, that's a deal. Who got you? No, what pushing? Okay, I will go.
They need orientation.
Oh, young people knew.
They need orientation. It doesn't matter. Every day, orientation. Such a person, I saw we hear it. Or your year and now back. About one son of Bonana. Not the young man. No. Major said this young man probably hasn't married yet. What was born and share and I friends?
And one waka.
The testicles. Oh, but all what you got for testicles? According to someone, no, sir, Baba Nini, or Bonim, and say, I know Bonichi. When you saw your on him, when you begin or Boa, forever ever. You dream, live with it. I know. No, who you did? Tell you so, no, who you did. Tell of Bob Boy, no, and of Barson or Bob Girl, no. No, where you say, where you say unity, straight away to the others. Not just say unity, I say you're prosecuted, no. He's had to be prosecuted. Because, before bed, what is that? Forces there, yeah, before bed. These vulnerable people, look at the young guy. What was that of Pierre Gallo? Now, get a picking the phone. I was a trying to picture. Because he was very volatile. Yeah. He was wild. Until picking the phone. No, after all the man left to right. No, this is a shameless man. Very shameless.
Ghana Armed Forces commences investigation into inappropriate conduct of soldiers. In line with the directive from the presidency, the Ghana Armed Forces wishes to inform the general public that investigations have begun into the inappropriate conduct of some soldiers during an encounter.
Left to right.
So that is it. Oh, that guy now you're doing.
What do I buy now? Hey! Of the other couple of
about 3 times.
About the chicken home. About a cock of one cent. Come on. Where?
Is it because of video?
Yes.
Guy with the like it's why we don't even say like he dumped all the consequences.
I think he wasn't aware.
He wasn't aware that there's a camera there.
And got the
because somebody I said, "Oh, share for that video no." After later on me e calm no. Obi a be pan chew. Na it say o church ase. Mo abo ma wie no.
Why too late?
There be no mo pan chew. Bio wa abo ma wie no.
Some pan chew.
Oh, madam ne buy we o me pan chew. O man go for buy be I say o church ni say na. O me pan chew say pa chew me mbuye bi o de do sika be ma. Na o jar ho.
I just say kwa we I also we so go wa shama sibi.
Me me sure azugu microphone ni bia.
Azugu bra champo microphone. We be the diploma ko I also we so go.
Oh no. It's a disgrace to the Ghana Ghana Armed Force. It's a disgrace. And they will take a swift action against you.
But my main quick commentary on this then.
Divine. Meka say me nwa panyi asaka kan nyina. This particular soldier no. They was here investigating no. You're prosecuting.
Now investigation being a video.
And the divine can the person is innocent until proven guilty.
Like what?
Definitely they'll ask questions. They'll find out what happened.
Very well.
But I think say under no circumstance, and I was a member of security. Under no circumstance. Regardless of the provocation, also nyabutre. Inti mami zooming into quickly into the lower quickly into the lower abdomen. Now to assembly so very topical. I think that we must educate Ghanaians on the issue of keeping short hair. Abra nkwarawo school mo. Put the issue in perspective. Amount for a bomb minister, but I would say what the minister said no. Something a whole long time. I'll share the GES code of ethics ni mo a say Accra100 school was so evenly low all round. There are several arguments. There is no connection between growing of hair and intelligence. I agree, but the fact is that say Accra100 entity was say Accra appear in a uniform way. The uniform way no so say an entire pe. But the fact is that we should encourage our young ones to be able to obey rules. And to the attorney say, yes, Mijidi said there can be exceptions. They see, for example, at Accra100 school, no, on health grounds, on religious grounds, you can keep your hair. But the fact is that, my man Kurani who said they have freedoms unfettered, freedoms unlimited. The fact is that Mijidi said, say 3 years and now senior high school 2.5 years no sakwara be unity it you with me concentrate on what he or she is being taught ebeboa
that it no want to concentrate
you see
school young lady well grown from the mofrase out him say the tree na ye fe yes 3 years binti won 23 winning na on san grow
that argument me Jane say yes you see me Jane say a completely flawed
you try tea na give to worry
yes
infrastructure. So what's the correlation?
The arguments can be made say almost education here much more advanced than ours. Yes. What I'm telling you is that me did say even issue about hair, growing of hair, cutting hair. No, that is not the most important thing. Yeah, share issues about what infrastructure. But the fact is that and that is what we must address. But the fact is that my man Koran who said they have unfettered rights. They can do anything at all. And I agree with the minister. That rule must be maintained after 2 years, 3.5 years. And you're crashing. So you need here. Anya she.
Of a case and I know to that you lie. The soldier is NDC. Of a case, oh why offer?
I know you. I saw the beef from Ras Mubarak to the current education minister, and I see that it is needless fight now. Ras Mubarak Kochro say, what does that got to do with double salary and then?
There was no need.
I think he was attacking the integrity of Haruna. Now Haruna, your senior brother. Haruna, in any case, if they were taking double salary, Haruna was the one who instructed us to pay him double salary. It was a government. It was a finance minister. Anambwa. There was a whole government at the time.
No, but we should not be preaching that.
No, I'm saying there was a whole government at the time.
Machinery pays you double.
Hold on. And I'm saying that it was everybody. It was those who were in government at the time. Anambwa.
Okay.
So you shouldn't bring this when he's calling that the students should bow their head or have a down head in terms of 3 years or 2 years in school. But I also completely disagree the minister to some extent in the sense that no person you reference na Bruchina Nkolano Kosku no more young to know. That are they more human beings than us? So I think say if the person, it's not about the hair, it's about the person concentration, it's about the teachers,
and it's about the motivation.
So what is rather a preaching? What I wanted the minister of education should rather preaching should be about teachers now. That is why I think that the education minister should have even introduced more sanctions. More sanctions. More punitive sanctions now. Code of ethics, but as to punitive action now, because school teacher or Bible Kurampo or still look beautiful. Teacher will continue to do what they are doing. So I think we needed something to make sure, to deter teachers from casing our small
Thank
jobs.
you, Chairman.
Because I'm about SSO.
Thank you.
SS.
For unity.
Yeah, sir. Oh, another or command or unity.
No unity.
Or unity no. Because their school is very disciplined.
Very well. That just says school when you.
But men boss school.
Very well. Senior, about your 2 minutes now.
Unim. So you need it. I say yes, some brand so nimu. The oye na enyefe. Ena untumi enyobia utumi kita weapon. Okay, the weapon go to uni emotionally intelligent. Uni patience sa. Na just say we no form no crowd street mu a. Mensi okite to at that point. Boni obeye no. O de oni my member a school for na esi omo ntwa omo tini dey. Na no to me have a position on this matter.
Okay.
And they say your BBF friend say monkeys play by sizes. And nyama bebre ono mu I think say yesua atra. Cultural wise no yesua atra. Oh, say people are making examples say affect a student no and a teen na e den ojanity America and kra na e ho no. See, o class bia na o fa plan bia. You have to put into account geographical, topographical, a lot of factors. Cultural and yama. Let's look at our setup, our educational setup. I'm an unequal who trimming the kind a collab no brony trimming. Trimming text channel. And yet, we need the text channel and yet one, you have to think about it. Secondly, most of the schools are brought from community schools. Day schools. Upon our best year, Befie.
We are through Hanum. I say, no, to here in Europe. I'm sorry, no, Europe. I say here in Europe, most schools are 99% day school.
Day school. Yeah. If you are no, I best year for GSCS or Takrade. And that's why again, when you say countries be all no more, most countries in Europe near you know who a mosquito near Dream Poda. Tio.
That's what you're saying.
Mitch now there. Abroboni eja ne 3 year due anim ohun mosquito da yan die aha yan ne mosquito na ti because of ye bebia ye wono ye weather system na warm humid. When you say for the first time Iceland for ohun mosquito baako first time last week no hu baako a big news crash CNN they capture so mo hu edue baako it all these things no say who balance who dwen ho a ese se edwen ho.
My brother be say My Odu, my brother didn't know that. My brother, let the AG, you say, my brother, we like what the AG is doing, but did you know why the MPP are complaining? Because the AG is exposing them big time.
Of course, unfortunately, we have some advert to run. So, but what Vake said, I know to that, please. Everybody should stop attacking Education Minister Honorable Haruna Idris, because when cut your hair statement came, I'm getting a lot of job. Sorry, Baba. It was munya sense no amoka. I remember me crying. Yeah, that's the same Baba boy. We wish we could continue. But I say a tongue at the Kakra and a Scrum Quachi producer. One, thank you, Emmanuel Lion Fly on Facebook. Medin and Otu Darko. Emphasis the PCMA chairman Awin Gobet, Importers, Exporters Association of Ghana, quantity for penning. Bra penny divine. President Mahamati and your friend because Juma Maya you deserve a commendations. And my friends here na yen twan de me do to that what's not Yakopon Yadum ever since stay on. I'm out.